DC Tyrant. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301 Star Wars. The Interstellar War broke out. At the moment, when Batel and Fyra were fighting, the defense forces outside the Earth, consisting of the Krypton Legion and superpowered genetic humans wearing various single-soldier Iron Man-style armor, were commanded by General Ultra in space and started a war. The Kryptonian spaceship did not launch a high-power beam of rays because it was too close to the Earth. Many aliens of various types, driving single-soldier spaceships, or appeared naked in space, fighting with the Legion led by General Ultra. The starry sky was instantly set off by explosions, flames and starlight, and there were continuous human machines. The Iron Man-style armor was torn apart, and humans were frozen in the universe, frozen and lost their lives. There were also humans attacking, tearing, and blowing up Krypton's single-soldier spaceships, fighting with various alien creatures inside. Small laser beams kept flashing death in the starry sky. For humans, this is their Earth. Even if it is ruled by Batel, it is a peaceful human planet. This is their home, and they cannot allow their home to be invaded. Those who can be given superpower genes by Badi are all selected humans who are willing to protect the Earth. Their mission is to shed blood for the Earth. As for the invaders, most of them are Krypton criminals. For them, only by invading this planet can they get rid of their criminal identities and get rid of being controlled at any time. At Hale's order, the self-destruct device in their brains is enough to kill them. Only by becoming a hero in the development of the planet can they restore their normal identities and get rid of death. Hale did not stop this war. Instead, he sent all the Krypton criminals out. In the starry sky, the explosion flames kept rising and turned into a fierce war. These criminals were not taken seriously by Hale. They were all the most evil criminals. Burying them in this war was the most suitable place for them to die. In addition, it can make Badi see that everything, his own chips, whether it is this Krypton spaceship under control of many criminals, all kinds of abilities, are enough to destroy the Earth. Whether it is coercion or cooperation, Badi will help him create the glory of Krypton as he thought. Or his own talent and wisdom, which are all what Badi needs. In his head, there are many scientific research chain data of Krypton, as well as the most outstanding wisdom and scientific research technology of Krypton. He is a versatile and perfect talent, enough to push Badi's planet to a status equal to Krypton, open up star colonization, and make Badi the emperor under this starry sky. According to the current situation, cooperation with Badi to create a Kryptonian glory again is the only chance. It is the only chance for me to restore the glory of Krypton. This does not violate Zod's order. On the contrary, it will be completed exceptionally outstanding. Because Krypton warriors, such powerful warriors, Badi will not refuse to make. The glory of Krypton will rise again. It is inevitable. Of course, if Badi dies in Zod's hands, then he will lead the Earth and create the glory of Krypton again. There is no surprise. In any case, in the calculation of Hale's excellent brain, he will complete Zod's order and do what he wants to reverse. In the main operations room of the Kryptonian spaceship, Hale looked through the glass shield at the dark starry sky, where continuous explosions and sparks flashed. His sight passed through the cruel battlefield in the starry sky, and Hale's eyes stayed on the moon. Zod's figure stood on the cold moon, roaring in pain, his eyes full of brutal killing, like a terrifying monster crawling out of the abyss, with a huge body made of muscles, emitting a distorted breath fluctuation. Hale's face was gloomy. He needed to keep an eye on Zod, and wait for Badi and Zod to decide the winner. All other invasions were just ants fighting each other, which had no meaning. The war in the starry sky was getting more and more grand, and the alien criminals participating in the war and the Kryptonian army and humans on Earth were tearing each other apart fiercely. No matter how tightly the Earth defended, it could not defend against many strange aliens. There were huge bodies, red skin, and savage-like appearances. They broke through the Earth's atmosphere in space and landed directly on the surface of the Earth, starting to cause destruction. There are life forms of blood parasites that can activate themselves by feeding on human cerebrospinal fluid. All parasites grow dense exoskeletons and are very strong. They invade human bodies, and many parasitic monsters are produced on the surface of the earth in a short time, wreaking havoc on the surface. There is the planet Orion with multiple compound eyes-like insects, and insect-like insect people descend on the surface, causing fear and panic. There are also races of life forms based on silicon, which grow trees and form trees like big trees, covering cities. And so on. Large numbers of alien creatures descend on the earth and cause damage to the surface of the earth. On the earth, the remaining fighters of the old country kept flying in the sky, firing artillery fire and shooting down many broken spacecraft that broke through the star defense layer. For a while, the blue sky of the entire earth was erupting in the smoke of war. Huge strange alien creatures, insect-type alien creatures, parasites parasitizing humans, and races based on silicon life forms came one after another, setting off wars on the earth. Diana led the Amazon female warriors to hunt. Atlantis and the sea guarded the ocean. Huge dark clouds. Thunder was controlled by Raven from time to time. Condensed and struck the alien creatures continuously, and human military personnel held guns and sprayed sparks fiercely on the ground. In an instant, the war started, and the situation was tragic. But Badi, Hale, and Zod almost knew clearly that these were just child's play. In the real battle, in the decisive battle between Badi and Zod, the two were already difficult to destroy by ordinary star destroyers. This kind of invasion and defense of the Earth level subordinates was not taken seriously by them. Badi was just consolidating his rule at that time, and the centripetal force of mankind towards him. After this battle, mankind will accept his rule safely. And Zod, when he obtained the power of Doomsday, he already knew that the real battle was the battle with Badi, so he completely delegated power to Hale and went straight to the moon. Their combat effectiveness is no longer a casual technology that can cause harm. At this moment, Badi turned away from the battle, and after instructing Hera to pull Fire out and send her back to a safe place for custody, he looked into the distance, and his farsightedness zoomed in an instant, and he saw Zod's tyrannical and restless giant figure on the moon. Badi's face was grim, and he floated up, breaking through the sound barrier in an instant, rubbing out a fierce flame of rupture, and in the smoke and flames of war in the air, he was like a fierce meteor, and suddenly boomed. He stepped on the moon. The moon seemed to pause, and dust rolled out of the surface. Zod, long time no see. Chapter 302, Badi vs Zod. On the moon, the surface is full of pits, as if countless marbles have been ejected from the pits on the surface. Badi has an outstanding figure, dressed in white, stepping on the moon, like a banished immortal from the mortal world. His footsteps are light, and the moon seems to pause, and the entire satellite seems to stop moving, pausing at his feet. The dust on the moon is like a tide, rolling and forming a huge wave of dust, rippling towards the distance. Badi's figure stands alone in the hot and distant dust on the moon, cold and ruthless. At this moment, all the grievances and hatreds on Krypton will be resolved. Zod's huge, ugly doomsday body has begun to distort the dust and gas on the moon. The body, which is as hot as a furnace, emits an extremely strong magnetic field. The moment Badi steps on the moon, this doomsday monster no longer controls its body and releases all its body magnetic fields. The huge magnetic field is like a storm, blowing away the dust on the ground of the moon. The two strong body magnetic field reactions were like two huge waves, colliding with each other, and the rolling moon dust was surging and colliding. The entire moon seemed to be crumbling in an instant. Bamulodi. Zod's ugly, huge muscular face roared, and his horrible face on the muscle pile showed a violent red gaze in his eyes. The violent waves swept over one after another, rolling up huge dust, covering the cold, cruel, and violent eyes of the two. No words were needed anymore. The hatred between the two had been formed since the beginning. On Krypton, only the death of one party could end it. Boom. Zod stomped hard, and the moon instantly cracked under his feet, with a huge crater of more than 1,000 kilometers. The entire moon fell down suddenly, and a piece of it was dented, as if it was bitten by a heavenly dog red moon. It horrifyingly broke away from the original satellite orbit of the Earth, and kept sinking downwards. If the moon had consciousness, it would have been stunned by the stomping. Zod's huge body burst out of the air amidst the moon dust, carrying an incomparable violent and angry gaze and killing desire, and rushed towards Badi. Badi was not to be outdone. The moment Zod moved, he had already grinned grimly, stretched out his hand, and grabbed Zod's rough frosted skin and thick arm with bone spurs. Boom 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 boom. Badi's eyes lit up with ferocious red eyes, and his arms were knotted with blue veins. In an instant, he changed from a god with an ethereal temperament like an immortal to a demon king of the abyss, revealing a ferocious smile. Badi grabbed Zod's big hand that was attacked by him, and instantly raised Zod's arms to the left and right, swinging his body to the left and right, smashing Zod crazily. Zod was smashed on the moon like a broken doll, and the sound of bang 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 kept coming back and forth, making a huge noise, shaking the moon so much that it began to separate from the earth in space. After just one round of fighting, Zod was completely suppressed. On Krypton, more than 50 general-level senior figures were able to suppress the weak Badi. But now, after 10 years of strength, 10 years of absorbing the sun, obtaining the life code in his body, Badi has never relaxed, and has been strengthening himself. Zod was suppressed as soon as he fought. This is a suppression of strength and a suppression of combat skills. The whole moon sank again, and began to fly away from the orbit towards the deep space. Zod's face was hideous, his eyes were red and violent, he directly tore off his arm, and scattered blood on the moon. The burning blood was like boiling water, boiling the surface of the moon. Zod tore off his arm, and escaped from Badi's control. The moment the broken arm rolled over and jumped away from Badi, the fleshy granulation had grown wildly, like the tangled roots of an old tree, and it regenerated and recovered in an instant. The abnormally strong and terrifying recovery ability. The recovered arm was thicker than the original one, and the cuticle was thicker, obviously different from the other limbs of the body, and it seemed stronger, and had an indestructible sense of power. Badi's grim smile froze. He looked at the giant arm on his hand, and then at the giant arm that had grown on Zod's body. Super strong recovery and regeneration ability. This kind of regeneration and recovery strength is already stronger than any Kryptonian. Not to mention, Badi saw that the recovered arm seemed to be even more tyrannical, with a thick layer of tissue that could not be torn. This means that, as long as Zod is not killed instantly, he will become stronger than before during the recovery, and become more and more fierce. Boom. Badi threw down the giant arm in his hand. His face was violent like a demon, and a hot and violent aura emerged from his body. His body released all the magnetic fields, and he did not control his body magnetic field again. This was more terrifying than Zod, and the entire moon was entangled with his magnetic field. The gravity pulled each other, as if the space was distorted. At first glance, his figure looked weaker than Zod, but a majestic aura emanated from him, causing the entire moon to tremble, and the stars seemed to wail and howl at Badi's feet. Bamu. Luodi. Zod roared loudly, and waves of killing desires and the desire to destroy everything in his physical genes, crazy and violent cells, eroded his brain, destroyed his will, and made him exist with only one thought. Kill Badi, and then destroy everything. The violent eyes immediately lit up two thick thermal vision lines. The violent thermal vision wavered and directly extended along the surface of the moon, shattering the surface of the moon. It began to explode from Zod, plowing out two thick pits on the ground. Because the two thick pits were too large, they merged into a thicker pit from the beginning, blasting a huge pit on the surface of the moon. Badi's eyes were branded with burning red veins, and the thermal vision line also shot out, bursting towards Zod's thick thermal vision line. Compared with Zod's thick thermal vision line, Badi's thermal vision line seemed small, and caused almost no damage to the lunar environment. The two thermal vision lines collided head-on, and the thermal vision lines that looked as thick as a bucket and as thick as a water pipe collided, and huge sparks flew, just like the flames caused by the friction of a chainsaw tool. Badi's thermal vision line shot over without any disadvantage. On the contrary, Badi concentrated and controlled the concentrated thermal vision line to the extreme, and directly advanced towards Zod. In a moment of confrontation, Badi's thermal vision line overwhelmed him. The temperature of the thermal vision exceeded 100,000 degrees, and the scorching sparks directly dissolved a huge lava crater on the surface of the moon. On a tunnel in the thermal vision, it gradually retreated from Zod. The scorching sparks of the thermal vision melted the tunnel, dissolving a huge tunnel that gradually changed into a lava river and moved towards Zod. Chapter 303 Moon Paralysis. On the moon, the two competing thermal rays burst out with fiery red fireworks, molten the moon's surface, and formed a long lava tunnel underground. Badi suddenly stood up, and the surging energy in his body gathered. From the vitreous body of his eyes, a powerful thermal line of sight exploded again, and shot towards Zod's thick thermal line of sight. The impact ray, like a blade, directly cut Zod's thick thermal line of sight apart. Zod's thick thermal line of sight was like a flower, and was constantly hit in the middle by Badi's thermal line of sight, causing the thermal line of sight to fork. The laser was like a wheel, constantly forking and rotating under the attack of Badi's thermal line of sight. The scorching forked thermal line of sight crossed the surface of the surrounding moon, leaving a charred lava track, and shooting into space, dissipating in space. Boom. Badi approached step by step, and when Zod could not resist his heat vision, he stepped on the moon's surface with a bang, and stepped on the moon's surface, leaving a dent of nearly 1/5 of the moon's surface. The shattered pieces of the moon kept rising and flying into the space. He was extremely violent, wearing a white robe with a grim smile, like a peerless devil, looking down proudly, stepping on the starry sky. He retracted his eyes and his whole body was like a sharp knife, piercing into Zod's heat vision that was gathered again. He was extremely violent, stepping on the heat vision, and attacking Zod's closed body. He directly stepped on Zod's huge chest, and stepped him down to the moon, stepping him down to the depths of the moon. Ah! Zod let out a painful roar like a beast. His body was like a hammer drill, the stratum corneum was cracked, and the whole body was like porcelain, with blood marks, muscle fibers torn, and deep red muscles. The bones were completely shattered and reorganized in an instant, and the whole body was stepped into the depths of the moon. He was extremely unwilling. As the military commander of Krypton, he had no way to deal with Badi on Krypton, which led to Badi starting a revolution and causing the entire Krypton to fall into war. This was due to his incompetence as a military commander who could not suppress Badi. In the end, he was designed by his good friend Jor-El and entered the Phantom Zone. He already understood Jor-El's plan to come out of the Phantom Zone, control many criminals, and take them to drive spaceships and cross the Milky Way on an interstellar journey. But when he came here, he had no way out. He was beaten up at the beginning of the battle. None of them could compare to Badi's strength after absorbing sunlight for 10 years. The pain of being completely beaten up, which was completely unmatched, was simply a torture that destroyed his self-esteem for this former highest military commander on Krypton. At this moment, Zod was completely crazy, allowing the crazy thoughts of brutality and killing in his body to completely occupy his will. Raw. Deep inside the moon, Zod's body suddenly recovered and expanded to 4 meters high. His whole body developed under Badi's heavy blow and developed a more twisted body. His muscles were tied up like the roots of a 1,000-year-old tree. The surface skin was constantly cracked, bleeding, healing, and piercing the bones. In an instant, the genes inside the body had been reorganized hundreds of millions of times, reorganizing a real doomsday. Zod's consciousness was officially destroyed. What followed was a doomsday that only knew how to destroy. It roared with murderous rage and counterattacked Badi head-on. Badi looked down at the starry sky. His body was tall and proud, and his face was cold and grinning with madness. There was no one on the earth who could let him show his skills. Even when he made love with his wives carefully, he would accidentally break Diana's waist. Not to mention a fierce battle with himself, a passionate battle. The strong recovery of Doomsday made Badi grin wildly. The corners of his mouth almost split to his ears, and he rushed towards Doomsday. Bang 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 bang. There was no sound in space, but at this moment, everything should have sound. Badi was crazy, and the devil was in the moment. He punched Doomsday away, and in Doomsday's roaring and violent anger, he continuously bombarded his chest. Doomsday was like a piece of rag. After Badi's crazy and continuous punches, continuous waves burst out. The chest cavity was pierced from the beginning, and then the granulation hyperplasia recovered, and then reorganized the strongest bones that were hit. It was beaten like a rag, and kept retreating in space. It was directly hit into the moon by Badi again, and was directly hit out from the other side of the moon. They directly penetrated the moon. At this moment, Doomsday seemed to be strong enough to compete with Badi. After being punched through the moon by Badi, Doomsday launched its first counterattack. A huge force hit Badi's chest. Badi was hit directly like a meteor and smashed into the moon, which was almost 2/5 concave and had become a crescent moon. Badi proudly raised his chest on the surface of the moon. His chest brought some pain, which made him enjoy it abnormally. His eyes flashed red madness and his mouth cracked into an even crazier grin. It had been too long since he had suffered such a painful injury. This almost aroused the tyranny, cruelty, and coldness hidden in his body. He was like a few demons crawling out of the abyss, grinning back at Doomsday. Doomsday and Badi kept hitting each other on the moon, hitting each other, and erupting with a huge reaction. The two kept hitting each other back and forth into the moon. The whole moon was shaky and was constantly penetrated by them repeatedly. Both were violent and mad beasts. They penetrated the moon back and forth, causing the whole moon to shake and begin to show huge canyon cracks on the surface. The moon was like a giant bowling ball, pushed by Doomsday and smashed directly at Badi. Badi was not to be outdone. He penetrated the moon and hit Doomsday fiercely. It was so satisfying to hit Doomsday, who was crazy, unconscious, and only knew how to kill. In the end, the humans on Earth were shocked. What happened to the moon? Someone screamed. They saw that the moon was constantly changing like a dog had bitten it, and the full moon had a bite missing. Then, it was even more terrifying. The moon began to fly around the Earth non-stop, faster than satellites and any spacecraft. The many criminals and soldiers fighting in space were simply horrified. A big moon just smashed towards the battlefield, and Doomsday roared and pushed the moon to smash crazily. Badi's figure and Doomsday's figure that was hit away kept rushing through the space battlefield, causing huge damage, making the entire battlefield look thrilling. In the end, the moon covered with cracks could no longer bear it. Boom. This satellite, which has guarded the Earth for many centuries, has an average diameter of 3,475.8 kilometers, which is approximately 1/4 of the Earth's diameter, a volume of 22 billion cubic kilometers, and a mass of 735 trillion tons. It completely exploded in the starry sky, turning into a point in the distant aurora, which was extremely dazzling. The entire space battlefield stopped the war, watching in horror as the moon was kicked and blown up by the ball from the beginning, and exploded in the deep space universe, turning into an aurora point explosion. Hale was stunned in the main operations room of the Krypton spacecraft. The moon was destroyed just like that. A huge body of Doomsday flew past Hale's eyes, rubbing out fierce flames like a meteor. Then, Badi's crazy and grinning face passed by Hale's eyes, chasing Doomsday away. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304 Mars. Badi and Doomsday fought fiercely in space. They started from Earth, blew up the moon, and then fought all the way across the sky of Mars, brushing past Phobos. Boom. Doomsday's body, like a meteorite, emitting red flames, streaked through the thin atmosphere of Mars, tearing open a hole in the Martian atmosphere, and then fought fiercely in space with Badi, who was chasing him, and the two fought all the way to the asteroid belt. In the asteroid belt, they kept holding asteroids and smashing each other, and in the super speed meteorite belt, they kept smashing planets. The action was simply earth-shattering, and destroyed the stars. Mars, under the blue sun. Mars has a thin atmosphere, and there are many, and large dust particles. Scattering mainly occurs, scattering red light with the same wavelength as the size of its own particles, and the red part of the sunlight in the line of sight is scattered, so the sunset you see will be blue. On the ground, two white Martians penetrated the surface of Mars, and appeared on the ground of the desert Gobi. They are burly, with red muscle fibers and large white bones showing, a thin layer of white skin covering their bodies, white pupils, high cheekbones, and deep eye sockets. From human vision, they can only be described as monsters. In fact, these races have lived on Mars for hundreds of millions of years. They are divided into green Martians and white Martians. Because of the racial coup, only white Martians exist on this planet now. Because of the unique social structure of telepathic communication, they do not wear clothes. The leader, the white Martian, looked at the blue sunset from a distance and was horrified and took a breath. He saw the battle between Badi and Doomsday and the destruction of the moon. The nearby moon on Mars, Phobos, was directly wiped off 1/10, which was horrifying. Leader, the subordinates next to him shrank their white pupils in horror, watching Badi and Doomsday fly over their sky in horror, almost knocking down Phobos. This kind of power that runs rampant in the universe and blows up stars is terrifying. The moon had been blown up by them, emitting aurora in the universe, and the explosion shattered into meteorite fragments. With the gravity of each planet, it turned into meteorites and fell towards each planet. Now, these two monsters, fighting, passed by Mars, arousing their vigilance. Don't worry about it. The slightly taller white Martian calmed down his shock and stopped his men from talking. Even if they wanted to care, they couldn't do anything. Fighting in space like this, blowing up the moon, it seems that they have the power to blow up Mars. They can't do anything, even if they want to. Fortunately, they have left Mars, which makes the white Martians feel a little relieved. However, they were too early to rejoice. Badi and Doomsday were in the asteroid belt, throwing meteorites at each other. As they fought, Badi also had a clear observation comparison. Doomsday's power and the speed at which his physical strength increased were simply terrifying. If Badi could beat Doomsday on the moon, then now, after blowing up the moon, when they enter the fierce battle in the asteroid belt, Doomsday is almost the same as him. This terrifying power enhancement stimulated strengthening cells under the attack anytime and anywhere. The stronger Doomsday cells are, it is extremely terrifying. It perfectly abides by the energy conservation contained in the cell. Energy can neither be created out of thin air nor disappear out of thin air. It can only be transformed from one form to another or transferred from one object to another. Its total amount remains unchanged during the transformation or transfer process. This is conservation. And Doomsday is terrifying. He is completely conserving energy in the cell body, transforming from one form to another form of counteraction. The cell can even absorb kinetic energy and strengthen the cell, as if the cell in the body is a self-circulating small universe, constantly converting energy forms and absorbing the kinetic energy of the attack. However, this is still a scientific creation. Even if the self-circulating system cells in the body can adapt to any environment, it cannot be changed. When it is really unable to replenish external energy, the cell gene changes, are weak and powerless. Doomsday will not be infinite. At the end, Badi transformed into a magic body, 5 meters tall, taller than Doomsday, with strong muscles made of steel metal, as huge as his body under the cloak, and the magnificent dark energy spread, like a demon destroying stars under the starry sky. In the deep space, like the black light in the abyss, a pair of dark pupils shot out dark rays, directly turning Doomsday's chest into chocolate, completely destroying and consuming the energy in its body. After Lion turned Doomsday's limbs into chocolate, Doomsday was too weak to evolve, before he could evolve to resist the dark rays. Boom. A hole appeared in the atmosphere of Mars. Doomsday's limbs were dark, and his chest and abdomen were completely turned into chocolate. He fell on the Gobi Desert of Mars. His limbs were completely smashed to pieces, leaving only his head and chocolate chest and abdomen. His muscular face showed no reaction. Only his head was left. He had no energy to evolve again. Badi's huge figure stepped down from the Martian sky. The entire Martian ground rumbled, and he stepped out a deep pit of thousands of miles. The blue sunset sunlight reflected on his dark body. His upper body was huge and majestic, like a giant reaching the sky. His muscles were like the roots of an old tree, as hard and deep as metal. Badi's body was high above him, and his heavy feet, like elephant legs, stepped on Doomsday's chest and abdomen, crushing the chocolate on his chest and abdomen. He smiled coldly, and then grabbed Doomsday's head with his big hands. The two white Martian hunters nearby were already terrified. When Badi landed, Mars felt like it was going to cause a magnitude 10 earthquake. The planet seemed to be about to pause and be stepped off its orbit. It was too scary. Badi raised his eyebrows, holding Doomsday's head, and his dark pupils looked at the environment. He saw the two white Martians, looking at his white pupils with uneasy fear and shock. He realized that he had been fighting with Doomsday and hid Mars. Facing Badi's gaze, the white Martians had goosebumps on their minds. This was a being that could blow up stars. My strong man, may I ask, is there anything else? The taller white Martian leader asked cautiously, looking at Badi with a bit of fear in his eyes. He hoped that Badi would leave quickly after the fight, and not stay here, and not look at them here for a second. Badi's body, that huge body, the dark magic energy swirling around, the metallic muscle lines, it was too violent, too violent. Because of the height, the two white Martians still needed to look up at Badi in order to express their kindness in spirit and eyes. Badi's condescending eyes, at this moment, were like the demon god who dominated the galaxy. With disregard and indifference, he decided the future of the Martians. In 3 days, bring the whole of Mars and surrender to me. After saying that, without paying attention to the two white Martians' dead faces, he changed back to his Kryptonian body, flew away from Mars, and flew back to Earth. Chapter 305. Kryptonian Spaceship. Squeak. An unpleasant sound of metal and steel suddenly sounded. In the main combat control room cabin, a crack suddenly appeared, and a pair of white jade hands inserted into the hull, and tore a hole on both sides. Suddenly, the main combat control room cabin suddenly became chaotic. Under the gravity of outer space, it was like a whirlpool-like suction, raising a strong wind. Small objects and small instruments were quickly sucked into the crack, and swayed one by one. It was as if this was the mouth of the abyss, forming a hurricane, attracting everything. Hayer's eyes were stern, staring at the white jade hands. I saw that the hands suddenly expanded again, stretching the crack again, making an unpleasant sound of steel and metal twisting. In the crack, the tall figure of Badi appeared, and behind him was the boundless and brilliant starry sky. He was dressed in white, with a sneer on his face, like a giant, looking down and observing ants, tearing the hull from the starry sky and entering here. Enemy attack. The crew members in the main combat control room all had Kryptonian genes. Their powerful strength made them unaffected by the suction of outer space. They all stood up from their operating seats and gathered around Hale. Hale's face was complicated, and a guilty look flashed across his eyes. He used his hands to suppress the tense hostility of the surrounding Kryptonian soldiers. Badi, Hale said bitterly. He didn't know what to say for a moment when he met his friendly brother again. The hem of Badi's white windbreaker was frantically blown by the suction force. His body was tightly attached to his strong body, exuding a great power that looked down on the starry sky. His hair was messy with a tough face, and his cold face was cold with a cold smile. Bang 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 bang. The torn hole suddenly had small objects such as lockers, which were attracted to the crack. They couldn't get through and got stuck. Suddenly, the objects piled up. For a moment, the wind stopped. Badi's messy hair fell down quietly. An ugly head appeared in his hand and he threw it forward. Zod's head, which was full of muscles, rolled to the feet of Hale. General Zod. A soldier screamed, his expression excited, staring at the head with bated breath. Even after experiencing the second transformation of Doomsday, it can still be seen that this is Zod's head. A tense atmosphere suddenly spread in the cabin. The soldiers surrounding Hale stared at Badi with stern faces. Hale, do you want to fight me too? Badi's face was cold. Hale disappointed him too much. On Krypton, although he wanted to use Hale's intelligence and wisdom to study many scientific and technological achievements for himself and set off a revolutionary cause, but he asked himself, he treated Hale like a brother. On Krypton, besides Fire, Hale and he had the deepest feelings. Coming out of Kanda University, they were both top talents in their respective fields. They not only appreciated each other, but also had a brotherly relationship of nearly 10 years. But he never expected that just for his idol, Jor-El, his recognized father, and joining the El family, Hale would reveal information about himself, which made him lose miserably, and forced to flee Krypton. This was too chilling for him. Of course, Hale was unintentional. Even when he learned that his father Jor-El had set up a plan to kill Badi, he still begged Jor-El to let Badi live. But in order to appease Hale, Jor-El agreed on the surface and set a bomb in private to kill Badi. If Badi did not have scientific and technological capabilities that they did not know about and escaped, he would probably have been buried in space before he came to Earth. When Hale finally knew all this, he felt guilty and could not let it go. He also had a complete falling out with Jor-El and left the El family. Badi didn't know about these things. But even if he knew, it would not change what Hale did. From the beginning, Hale had no intention of standing by Badi's side and wavering between the two sides. Being Jor-El's son was destined to be a brotherly decision, with no room for maneuver. No. Hale shook his head bitterly, with heavy guilt in his eyes, making him unable to relax. You retreat first. He waved his hand and asked the Kryptonian soldiers around him to retreat. General Hale. General Zod asked us to protect you every step of the way. A soldier said hesitantly, and did not retreat immediately. Zod gave everything to Hale, including the identity of a general. Among the remaining Kryptonians, Hale is already the supreme commander of Krypton. This can be said to be the Kryptonian who got the position of general most easily, because there is no one else who can take on this responsibility. It's okay, he's my brother, back off. Hale said with a stern look on his face. Krypton society is a society with serious class divisions. The general's orders are absolute, and no subordinates are allowed to have any objections. Yes, General. The Kryptonian soldiers looked solemn and stern. After saluting Hale, they withdrew from the main combat control room like a tide. Wait until all the Kryptonian soldiers have left the cabin. There was silence in the space. There was a whirring sound here, and from time to time there was a suction force from the gaps that caused airflow, which was whirring and swirling. Hale's face was silent, and his eyes were filled with guilt as he faced Badi. For a moment, he didn't know how to face Badi, or what to say. General, you are probably the Kryptonian who is most likely to get the position of general in the history of Krypton. Badi said indifferently, with a cold and ruthless face and a look like a stranger in his eyes. Whether it is Zod or Badi, they have to go through many hardships to become generals in Krypton. They have excellent military knowledge and commanding ability, and they are loyal to the orders of the upper echelons of Krypton. Only then can they be qualified to sit in the position of general. Hale's position as a general is indeed the easiest to obtain in the history of Krypton. It is only because Hale is the only choice that Zod gave everything to Hale. You know, I'm not suitable for this position. Hale took a deep breath and closed his eyes tightly. When he opened his eyes, the guilty look disappeared. Now is not the time to let himself feel guilty. Badi, I don't want to go against you. Hale said, releasing Kara is my act of goodwill. I believe in Kara, and I should have told you. Badi's eyebrows flashed with doubt. Kara. He didn't know Kara at all. On Krypton, Kara was his combat training student. She was invited by Kara's father to teach Kara. It was because of this that Badi persuaded Kara's family to become his supporters. It's just a pity that everything failed because of Hale. Is Kara still alive? Chapter 306, The End of Our Year. Master, when flying to the moon, Kara-El had already contacted my network in a small spaceship. After genetic confirmation, it was Kara-El. Because the Master was fighting at the time, according to the assessment, knowing the existence of Kara-El would not have any impact on the battlefield, so he did not disturb the Master's battle at the time. Badi nodded. He connected to Hera's network to get the specific information. Kara, indeed survived, and when Zod came out of the Phantom Zone, he met her by chance and caught her by the way. And now, she has become a heartfelt gift from Hale to Badi. But, what can this express? Well done, Hera. Badi responded calmly and praised, then cut off the connection with Hera, and looked at Hale. In the cabin, from the blocked cracks, the wind whistled back and forth. Badi stared at Hale with silent eyes, without saying a word. This gave Hale a heavy pressure in his heart. Silence spread in this cabin, with only the whistling wind. The former friendship can only turn into an isolation that cannot be relieved. With Badi's character, he will not forgive a person who betrayed him, and it is impossible for them to continue to be friends again. They have been far away, separated, and become two different people. It is precisely because Hale is smart enough and knows Badi's character, so when facing Zod's order, he already wants Krypton to be glorious in the universe. So he uses Kara to sell Badi. I surrender, Badi. Hale said calmly, but you need to continue the glory of Krypton again, and you can't let Krypton disappear in the universe. Hale believes that Badi will choose. In any case, under another situation, the ability of Krypton warriors to become stronger after basking in the sun is enough to become powerful warriors under Badi, and they are also warriors that Badi cannot abandon to conquer the starry sky, because this kind of warrior is too cheap. For Badi or Hale, this kind of Krypton bloodline that can be created by genes is a very cheap existence. I don't know, Hale, what qualifications do you have? Bargain with me? Badi said coldly. The most powerful Zod, who turned into Doomsday, was no match for Badi, and his head rolled under Hale's feet. This Kryptonian spaceship driven from the Phantom Zone had no qualifications, and no ability to bargain with Badi. The so-called Kryptonian criminals, the Kryptonian warriors led by Zod, who attacked the Earth, would be suppressed by Badi's presence, and would not pose any threat at all. Badi's existence is the power to suppress a planet. I know you have the courage to swallow the universe and the ambition to dominate the galaxy. Hale was calm, waving away everything in the past. In his eyes, there were calm calculations and clear pros and cons. This is the world of adults. There is no right or wrong, only pros and cons. It seems that the past, the unintentional betrayal of Badi, is no longer in his heart. I have a series of knowledge about Krypton, Badi, more detailed than you want. All kinds of technology, everything in the Kryptonian Science Institute, are in my mind. Hale's eyes flashed with confidence, and he had unparalleled confidence in research. He showed a strong self-confidence, his chest subconsciously straightened, his sharp eyes stared directly at Badi, and he shook off all the guilt for Badi and what he had done. His face had a bit of cold and sharp confidence. That was the experience, confidence, and subconscious confidence he had gained from years of working in his own career and reaching the top of the field. When it comes to research, he is not inferior to anyone, even his former father Jor-El. The Kryptonian intelligence brain calculated that he would be the one to continue the glorious future of Krypton, the leader of the next era, and his future is limitless. And Krypton's demise, his brain also has a lot of complete information. One person is enough to be a civilization. Badi narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at the extremely confident Hale in his heart, and squinted his eyes in thought, as if thinking, I can surrender to you, Badi. All of this, the Kryptonian spacecraft, the Kryptonian army, the various alien criminals who followed from the Phantom Zone, and the Kryptonian information in my brain. All of this is enough to help you open up the starry sky, conquer the solar system, move towards the Milky Way, and establish an extremely large empire in the Milky Way. I surrender to you, Your Majesty Bamulodi. Hale's chest was slightly bent with confidence. At the end, when he called Badi Your Majesty, he couldn't avoid a little bitterness in his heart. The former good friends and brotherly feelings also disappeared. Now only the identity of a subordinate remains. He lowered his head slightly, and his face was in the shadow, and it was difficult to detect that a gloom flashed. Oh, this is what you do as a general. You want me to restore the glory of Krypton. Badi looked down at Hale with ruthless and cold eyes. He was indifferent and ruthless in his heart. If Hale really wanted to help him, then the Earth would be able to usher in a super development in the next few decades. Hale is indeed an exceptionally outstanding person. Even on Krypton, he was an outstanding super talent. On Krypton, Badi treated him like a brother and had great affection for him, but he still did not get the help of Hale. Now, he lowered his head and was no longer his friend and brother, but wanted to be his subordinate. Yes. Hale raised his head again and faced Badi with a solemn expression. But, I have one condition, you must agree to it. Hale's eyes were like torches, and in an instant, it seemed to emit a burning and dazzling will. Like a moth to a flame, he moved forward without hesitation. He also had confidence that Badi would not refuse, because this was also a good thing for Badi. Save Krypton, where everyone exists together, reverse everything, change everything, return to Krypton again, and once again, everyone can live together on Krypton. Hale's heart was almost bursting with a fiery breath, and his blood was flowing. Badi suddenly seemed to see that on Krypton, Hale pursued Jor-El's footsteps like a belief, and became his son. That is why, on Krypton, Badi was leaked by Hale and the revolution failed. Bang. A huge explosion sounded. Badi's body suddenly turned into a demon god, bursting out with all his strength, and reached into Hale's armored chest with one hand. The armor was like paper, torn by Badi's huge power. His big hand passed through Hale's skin, squeezing and flattening his sternum, and blood splashed in the air. In an instant, Badi was standing behind Hale, sticking to his back. Badi held a bright red heart in his hand, beating wildly, spurting restless blood, staining Badi's white windbreaker red. Hale's expression froze, and it took him a long time to react. His heart, empty, has disappeared, without a heart. Why, Hale stared in disbelief, subconsciously looking at the empty heart cavity. He pressed his hands on the empty, bleeding heart position to confirm that he had lost his heart. I have a feeling that you will cause me trouble in the future, just like you did on Krypton. Badi squeezed his heart, and it deflated like a rag. He threw it aside, and blood splattered on the ground. His face was cold and ruthless, looking down at him quietly, watching the unwilling look of Hale disappear sadly, and he fell to the ground, his painful eyes flowing with unwillingness to die in Badi's hands for something he had not done. Badi quietly, with an expressionless face, watched his former friend Hale die. Chapter 307 Afterwards, the moon. The war was over. It was so fast and amazing that the Earth won the interstellar war in just one night. More than millions of Kryptonian criminals and Kryptonian soldiers led by Zod were captured and controlled. The huge Kryptonian spaceship, after the surrender of the think tank stars, turned into data and invaded the spaceship system together with Hera, curbing its self-destruction operation. The entire huge Kryptonian spaceship was taken by Badi. Although Hale was dead, he still had great value. His head had been removed and all the memory images and data were output in the Kryptonian spaceship. All of Hale's thoughts, ideas, wisdom and scientific research sparks, and a series of Kryptonian Academy of Sciences data were all output and recorded in Hera's database. However, the death of a talent like Hale is still a rather regrettable fact. What a pity. Badi sighed for Hale for the last time, with a faint expression, not like a pity for anything. He didn't want to kill Hale, but Hale disappointed him too much. When outputting the memory images of Hale in the past, as expected, Hale really wanted to use the Kryptonian spaceship to convert the superluminal flow engine, intending to destroy the solar system and go back to the past to save Krypton. Hale is undoubtedly a super scientist. This kind of scientific research ability is shocking. If he is given a lot of time, he can even really reverse and go back to the past and change everything. The destruction caused by the things that this super scientist attempts to create is simply crazier than any villain. If there is a slight mistake, it will destroy the solar system and everything created by Badi. Hale has destroyed his career once on Krypton. Badi can't let Hale do such a stupid thing again. Even if Hale's scientific research ability is excellent and not for his own use, Badi can only kill him to prevent this guy from causing any trouble. After the war, Badi quickly executed all Zod's jihadis, leaving a large number of Phantom Zone criminals, and ordered Ultra to take over the Kryptonian spaceship and lead many soldier criminals to take over Mars, as well as the surrounding Venus and Jupiter, to conquer the planets in the asteroid belt. At the same time, they were preparing to arrange strategic positions in the asteroid belt. As for the Earth, after the victory of the Defense War, some resistance forces were eliminated. After watching Badi and Zod fight, hitting the moon back and forth, and finally blowing up the entire moon, how many ordinary humans wanted to resist and could resist? The whole Earth, after this war, was simply in a crazy shock, and filled with great excitement. Your Majesty is mighty. In all the streets and districts, almost everyone was shouting Badi's name. The excited people on the streets hugged each other excitedly, shouting for victory and for Badi. The Earth was filled with great excitement. Almost everyone defeated the aliens that invaded the surface, including Diana, Pamela, many female warriors on Paradise Island, the Atlantis Sea Clan, and humans. Almost all of them looked up at the starry sky, watching Badi like a god, dressed in white, slowly descending back to the entire Earth, triggering extremely strong calls. Your Majesty is mighty. The extremely strong emotions and the infection of excitement lasted for more than a week before gradually subsiding. Humans finally faced the consequences of the moon being blown up by Badi. After the moon exploded and was destroyed, although there was a large magic technology array pre-made by Badi to stabilize the earth and not bring immediate turbulence to the earth, a series of reactions gradually appeared. First, the tides on the earth weakened and were almost stable. It was difficult to see large tides. The famous Kyantang river tide had almost completely disappeared. With the disappearance of the moon, the tidal phenomenon on the earth will be greatly weakened, but it will not disappear completely. Because the sun also plays an important role in the tidal effect, the water in the ocean on the earth will quickly shift horizontally, and that tsunami will sweep the whole world. The sea water will continue to impact from east to west, or from west to east, which will sweep the land with lower altitudes. This situation will eventually stabilize under the large magic array and the water technology magic of Atlantis, but it will still cause some islands to be submerged. The existence of the moon has a certain effect on slowing down the rotation of the earth. After the moon exploded, one of the effects was that the rotation of the earth accelerated. Now on the earth, the day has changed from 24 hours to 17 hours. This change is frightening because the change is too fast. If there is no accident, the disappearance of the moon will eventually cause the earth to change to 6 hours a day. This strong acceleration of the rotation speed is difficult to contain even with a large magic array. As a satellite of the earth, the moon has the function of stabilizing the earth's axis, so that the earth's axis maintains a relatively small deflection. This deflection makes the earth produce suitable seasons. Without the moon, this deflection disappears. The north and south poles are no longer frozen forever, and the equatorial region is no longer hot in summer. The temperate zone will continue to have relatively obvious changes in the 4 seasons and the position of the earth, and eventually, the earth will become like Mars. Not to mention that since ancient times, it has had a significant impact on human culture such as myths and legends, religious beliefs, philosophical thoughts, calendar compilation, literature, and art, and customs and traditions. The loss of the moon almost means that the earth and the creatures on it will have to experience changes in the movement of the earth again. This unexpected change almost made the entire human race panic and worry. When a day becomes 6 hours, the changes in human rest time, working time, and everything else are a disaster for the weak, but tenacious human beings. After just 1 week, through comprehensive calculations, all the changes that the earth will experience will be changed. Badi frowned. This change is what he didn't want. The earth will become 6 hours a day. Not to mention that humans can't stand it. Badi can't accept it psychologically. Already accustomed to a 24-hour day, Badi doesn't want to change the time law of the earth. So, after Hera's calculations again, Badi flew out of space again, directly flew out of the asteroid belt, and found a planet with a very high density crystalline carbon core. That is, the interior of this planet is diamond. Badi felt very satisfied, and he personally cut the diamond planet to the same size as the moon. The surface was already refracting light, and was very bright, which was brighter than the original full moon. I believe that on Earth, it will be cooler and more comfortable at night, with moonlight all over the Earth. Badi was very satisfied. He pushed the diamond moon that he had cut to the size of the moon directly from the universe, passing by Mars, and saw that Ott was executing the Martians who resisted on Mars, conquering Mars, and starting the Martian War. Everything was fine, and nothing happened. Badi pushed the sparkling diamond moon in the universe, and flew back to the Earth. When he returned to Earth, it had been more than a month, and the time changed to 15 hours a day. Together with the entire space base, he began to really set up the moon. Chapter 308 Endless August, beginning. 1. That night, the moon was full, and in the dark night, the bright light shone. The moonlight shone coolly on the Earth. In the streets and alleys, a faint dim light was diffused. The diamond moon above the head once again gave the Earth a bright moon. This diamond moon, after being adjusted by Badi, was more transparent and beautiful than the previous moon. It was bright and shining, reflecting the coolness in the dark night, just like the beautiful moonlight in the poems. The bright moon rises over the sea, reflecting the brilliance of the waves. The moon is so beautiful, with reality and the illusion. The bright light, like water brushing the earth. On the street, there are poetic artists, looking up at the bright moon, the moonlight sprinkled on their faces. They all seem to be brushed by cool water, and they enjoy it to the extreme. Today is July 31st, and the Eastern Mid-Autumn Festival is approaching. The new round of beautiful moon makes the Eastern Mid-Autumn Festival even more joyful and leaping. Badi did not abolish this huge special festival. Instead, he promoted it. He issued an order and the government publicly organized the festival, creating a more lively atmosphere. The festive atmosphere spread in the East more strongly than before. The Mid-Autumn Festival in the East is the first grand festival in the Bay calendar. Let the East celebrate. With the diamond moon half a month ago, after being pushed back from the starry sky by Badi, the Earth once again regained the days of having the moon. After coordinated magnetic field gravitational reactions, it was gradually completed, and this diamond moon was officially transformed into the Earth's moon again. The time of the Earth also gradually changed back to 24 hours a day. Antarctica. July 31st, 2350. The magnificent refraction of the aurora in the white and blue sky reflected a dazzling and beautiful scene. Antarctica is divided into the 17th continent area, the area of the Large Magic Technology Array Base, and the location closest to the center of the Earth. In the center of the Antarctic Earth, in the Grand Square, the ground is made of huge stones, a mixture of magic and technology, plus the mature magic system of a galaxy and the technology of Krypton for planet transformation. The two kinds of magic technology will help Badi control the Earth. Above the square is a shield created by the water technology of Atlantis, with many rare creatures floating in Antarctica. Badi's face is indifferent. His footsteps are on the square ground with horizontal cracks and circuits like a circuit board. He raised his head and looked at the Earth's core load-bearing column hanging in the hollow, his eyes flashing with satisfaction. Today, the large-scale magic technology array base located in the 17 continents of the Earth has been completed. It happened that the diamond moon was pushed back by him and became the Earth's moon again. There are still some bad reactions to the Earth's magnetic field and gravity that need to be adjusted. Badi plans to control the Earth himself, let himself carry the Earth, control the Earth's magnetic field, gravity, magnetic field, and can personally adjust the reaction to the diamond moon. Badi, this is very dangerous. There were only two people in the square, Badi and Raven. The black cloak wrapped around the demon's sexy and charming body. Raven's slender hands kept clenching tightly in front of her towering chest, her palms wrapped around her fists. Her face kept nervous and uneasy, and her eyes were nervous as she looked at Badi's figure. She was worried about Badi. The matter of carrying the Earth was too frightening and worrying. Although Badi's soul strength was special and his body could blow up the stars, he might not be able to carry the Earth, the power of a star. This was different from destruction, and was more difficult than creation. Raven was very worried, but she always supported him silently, and did everything for him. It's okay, you step back. Badi smiled lightly, comforted Raven a little, and then focused on the Earth's core load-bearing column in front of him. The position of the Earth at the center of the universe is irreplaceable. Controlling the Earth means controlling the center of the universe. This is an inevitable temptation for Badi's road to conquest. Therefore, he has been planning to control the Earth. The large-scale magic technology array base of the 17 continents has been completed. It just so happens that he needs to adjust the adverse reactions of the diamond moon to the Earth. Badi decided to completely control the Earth today. Raven stepped back, watching from a distance, nervously watching Badi float to the side of the Earth's core load-bearing column. Kayapta. It was so unbearable that it made his ears ring. The sound of twisted steel metal was torn apart. Badi tore his palms himself. The piercing pain rose to his brain. He seemed to feel no pain. His eyes showed a little desire. He pressed the blood flowing from the palm of his palm, carrying the will of his own spirit and soul, to the Earth's core load-bearing column. In an instant, as if from the position where Badi's palm pressed, blood threads spread out of the Earth's core load-bearing column, like the circuit of a circuit board, spreading on the Earth's core load-bearing column, gradually spreading to the twisted runes, magic spells, magic arrays, and scientific circuits on the column, and spreading to the entire column. In an instant, the column exuded a blood-red fluorescence, as if there was some evil ritual. This is the 17th pillar. the 16th pillars in different parts of the world before it all connected with Badi's spirit one by one, and were controlled by Badi's spirit and soul. It's okay. He retracted his palm. The wound on the palm of his hand grew granulation tissue rapidly without control, and recovered as before. Badi's eyes were fixed on the Earth's core load-bearing pillar. A feeling of controlling it with his arm rose in his heart, as if he had grown another arm, and could control it without any obstacles. This Earth's core load-bearing pillar was also controlled by him without any accidents. It was controlled by him, along with the other 16 pillars. Badi's eyes lit up in an instant, and his face was firm and tough. The ground of the square suddenly lit up with dense circuit reactions, and began to light up. All over the world, the large magic array bases in 17 continents began to light up with dazzling light in an instant. The Earth's core load-bearing pillar suspended in the hollow was controlled by Badi at the same time and fell violently towards the deep black hole in the ground in the center of the square, the center of the Earth, and fell into it. 17 load-bearing columns were inserted directly into the center of the Earth. At this moment, the Earth seemed to be a super huge bronze bell, which was struck. It was as if the magnetic field suddenly broke. The Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, and the Arctic Ocean suddenly rolled up crazy waves, rising higher and higher, forming a huge tsunami. Volcanoes all over the world suddenly erupted, huge volcanoes, soaring into the sky, and smoke spread throughout the sky. The whole Earth seemed to be stunned by the collision, and the Earth shook. What's going on? Earthquake? Is there another alien invasion? Run. The volcano has erupted. Is the end of the world coming? In an instant, all the cities on the Earth felt violent shocks. Buildings collapsed. Volcanoes erupted lava into the sky. Animals fled everywhere. The magnetic field suddenly became chaotic. The 4 seasons changed. Snow fell in summer. Life grew in autumn. The temperature reached 50 degrees in winter. And the trees dried up and died in spring. The whole world, the ecology is in a mess. Chapter 309 Endless August, Got 2. Antarctic Geocentric Square. The lines on the ground emit a faint light, piercing the ground, and constantly flowing to regulate the energy circuit of the Earth. Each point has the power of a small nuclear bomb. Now it is unusually stable, like water on the ground, flashing in the circuit. Badi's eyes condensed, and he groaned. His body shook, as if he had been hit hard. His face flashed with pain and a look of bearing a heavy burden. His temples burst with blue veins, his teeth were clenched tightly, and the scars on his cheeks were twisted and hideous. In an instant, 17 geocentric load-bearing columns were driven into the center of the Earth, connecting to the geocentric magnetic field, the magnetic field of the entire Earth, gravity, and gravity. This is equivalent to the Earth's magnetic field directly pressing on Badi's soul, and the huge gravity is directly pressing down from the spiritual level. His head seemed to be swollen with blood and about to explode. The blue veins on his forehead, temples, and face gradually spread, more and more, so that his face was distorted, and his body trembled. Sweat beads appeared densely from the pores on his body, and then gathered into rivers, moistening his white jade skin. It was already from the spiritual level, pouring down on the connection between the physical cells. Badi was sweating like rain, his tall and strong body trembling, standing alone in the square where the faint light rose from. He had a sense of greatness, that he could hold up the sky alone in the vastness, and he could hold up the Earth by himself. Under his white jade skin, blue veins bulged out horribly, like ferocious dragons wandering around. This was more strenuous than lifting a planet with strength, and more strenuous than fighting doomsday. The pressure from will to body almost made people collapse. The 17 load-bearing columns at the center of the Earth were in chaos, and the magnetic field pressure that caused the Earth's ecological chaos made his spirit and soul feel like paste, and his brain seemed to be about to explode. His eyes began to fill with blood, his bones made an unpleasant metallic squeezing sound, his blood surged like a raging wave, and in an instant, his own magnetic field was released, forming a substantial airflow, and with a bang, the momentum of a hurricane pressed down on the square. Badi, concentrate and sort out the Earth's magnetic field. Raven's body choked, and the hurricane blew up her cloak. Her delicate body stood in the hurricane, her black and white eyes stared at Badi, her fists clenched tightly, her palms wet, and sweat oozing out of nervousness. What she could do, and what she could prepare, were all completely prepared for Badi. At this moment, she could only watch Badi endure all this, which made her extremely nervous and uneasy. Her beautiful face became even paler and more nervous. She gritted her teeth and worried stiffly. The hurricane of level 20 seemed to be emitted from every pore of Badi. His figure was like a demon or a god. There began to be distorted light around him, distorting the thin air here, forming a gravitational field with him as the center point, and began to distort and swirl the hurricane that was getting bigger and bigger. A white hurricane rose up, and he was like the god of storms, his windbreaker fluttering wildly in the eye of the storm, veins bulging, eyes red, as if he was angry and wanted to destroy the world. This moment came quickly and disappeared quickly. The next moment, Badi's eyes suddenly showed a fierce look, and he tore his windbreaker. In the white vortex storm, his body suddenly grew taller and larger, turning into a 5-meter tall magic body, tearing the cloak that appeared with himself, and his muscles tied up his terrifying upper body in the terrifying mental power and dark magic power mixed out. In an instant, the mental power of the magic body and the dark magic power mixed outside, and the mental power increased greatly, directly connected to the Earth's core load-bearing column at the level of various magnetic fields, gravity, friction, and molecules. The Earth's core-bearing column and the lava at the center of the Earth swayed, as if it hit the bronze bell again, taking over the Earth's rotation, revolution, displacement, precession, nutation, changes in the obliquity of the ecliptic, changes in eccentricity, movement of the sun point, perturbation, movement of the center of gravity, electromagnetic force, strong force, weak force, atmosphere, air, plants, Earth, and everything else, changes in the Earth's natural world. At this moment, the entire Earth has undergone tremendous changes again, and time seems to be solidified. Puff Badi was in the Antarctic Earth's center square. The white hurricane around him suddenly disappeared like a layer of smoke. Suddenly, Badi felt that the mental pressure that came for a moment stabilized. The pressure still existed, but it was stabilized by his control of the Earth's core-bearing column, so that he could bear it. In an instant, Badi's face, as hard as rock and steel, relaxed, and he felt as if he had become a ball, a white cloud, and a vapor. At this moment, it seems as if I saw that from ancient times to the present, various mixed stone materials combined by chance to form the Earth. The decay of radioactive substances and the release of gravitational potential energy slowly warmed the interior, so that the iron contained in the original Earth was converted into liquid, and some iron oxides were also reduced. Liquid iron flows to the center of the Earth due to its high density, forming the core. Then gradually heavy substance is concentrated to the center of the Earth, promoting the chemical differentiation process, and separating the crust from the mantle. The crustal rocks were weathered and eroded by the atmosphere and water, producing sediments and sedimentary rocks, and then metamorphosed to form metamorphic rocks. The rocks continued to be subjected to various effects, and then formed the core of the continent, and grew into the continent. In an instant, it seemed as if I witnessed the formation of the Earth, and the Earth appeared by coincidence. It was as if there was a pair of invisible big hands. No matter what, this pair of invisible big hands was reasonable, and molded the Earth. From the Hadean, the Proterozoic, the Hadean, the Proterozoic, the Dionysian, the Archean, the Earchean, the Jurassic, the Cretaceous, to the present Cenozoic, the Earth's process seems to have flashed by, shocking people. Even though Badi can now blow up stars, he can't help but feel shocked by the great process of the formation of this planet and the birth of life. Badi's eyes flashed with shock, and he couldn't help but exhale from his mouth, his heart throbbing. Many processes just flashed through his head, were seen and observed by his supercomputing brain, and then passed away. This scene made Badi's brain swell, and the rest was only the shock of the formation of the Earth, this great life planet. If all this was made by a person with his hands, then the one who made the center of the universe, the Earth, could only be the supreme god. But all this, there is no trace. After a long time, Badi recovered from the shock, his eyes flickered, and his spirit inside seemed to turn into a gust of wind. At this moment, starting from the South Pole, Badi's side seemed to turn into a gust of wind, and began to sweep across the entire Earth. He was like God, turning into a gust of wind, sweeping across the surface of the Antarctic ice and snow, swimming in the atmosphere, sweeping across the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The fish in the oceans trembled and stiffened as his sight swept past. He had seen the underwater city of Atlantis. He saw that there were still other kinds of Atlanteans hiding in a corner of the ocean, and they had not yet been conquered by him. He saw the continuous green fields in the forest, as if his skin was rippling slightly under the airflow. He saw the desert Gobi. He saw that it was still daytime in the other half of the world. He passed by volcanoes, and the volcanoes subsided, and no longer exploded in anger. He passed by cities, and the continents were stable, and the earthquakes began to subside. He passed by the creatures on the earth one by one, and he indifferently withdrew his sight, as if he were God. Chapter 310 Endless August, The Death of Batman, 3. Bermuda Triangle. This place is located between the Bermuda Islands, the Florida Straits and the Puerto Rico Island on the eastern end of the Greater Antilles on the west side of the Atlantic Ocean. Mysterious events often occur here. The magnetic field is chaotic, and electronic equipment will malfunction here. In addition, Batman made his own island equipment to shield himself, so even the many satellites in the sky and Hera's eyes cannot see here. Noi Island, a very small island, has a hunter-like wooden house in the lush forest. The wood is moist and fresh. Obviously, this is just a newly built hunter's wooden house. The house is also extremely simple, with a sci-fi space treadmill, scattered wooden chairs, tables, and beds, and nothing else. Like a gust of wind, it passed through the ventilated window of the wooden house. Bruce, who was instructing Flash, suddenly paused, feeling as if he was being spied on. He frowned and turned to look out the window. The night sky outside the window was originally clear, and when there were no clouds in the sky, a chilling cold wind blew. A huge magnetic field reaction was generated, and the sky quickly condensed into a huge dark cloud. Thunder snakes began to surge, condensed on the dark cloud, and flashed violent electric currents. This is not normal. Batman's face was stern, and he took the instrument for monitoring the island from his waist. The value was showing that the magnetic field here was growing at an incredible speed, forming a dark cloud covering the entire island. Their location was between 20 degrees and 30 degree north latitude, belonging to the northern tropics. It was mainly controlled by tropical air masses throughout the year, and the northeast trade wind prevailed. Now it is summer and autumn, and there are many tropical hurricanes. Water walls more than 10 meters high will often form, and sea spouts can often be encountered. It can suck seawater to a height of several thousand meters. This situation is normal. It is not that suddenly, the clear night sky is covered with dark clouds, and thunder flashes overhead, like a dark cloud that destroys the world, bringing a heavy depression to the entire island. It was like a pair of big hands controlling the weather, gathering dark clouds, generating electricity in the magnetic field, and thunder emitting a terrifying aura. Barry, get on the treadmill. Start running now. Batman's face tightened, and he shouted to Flash. The weather was really abnormal. Although no employees of Bamulodi appeared here, Batman still concluded that they might have been discovered and would suffer a blow from changing the weather. Barry, do as we said. Use time to cover him. Let the world return to normal. Seeing Batman's face tense, Flash suddenly felt nervous, and goosebumps appeared on his body. Bruce, what happened? Flash asked while moving, stepping on the cosmic treadmill without stopping. The cosmic treadmill can amplify his speed force frequency, allowing him to forcibly get rid of the time travel affected by Badi's existence. They only have this last chance. A crazy rolling sound rang out in the wooden house, accompanied by yellow arcs, which began to occur frequently. The cosmic treadmill pulled the track frantically, and the figure of the Flash flashed a strong yellow arc. The phantom of his legs rolled up crazy yellow arcs, and frantically hit the dust in the air, and the sound of crackling continued to ring. The yellow arcs that spread over crackling hit the lower half of Batman's face in an instant, and his beard emitted a burning smell, and the pores on his body suddenly felt painful from being stimulated. In the whole wooden house, a strong and dazzling yellow arc light suddenly rose, piercing out from the window of the wooden house. Barry, it's up to you. Batman said softly, and glanced at the Flash on the cosmic treadmill. The yellow arc light kept spreading in the room, entangled, like twisted little snakes, and like the arc of the arc lamp, Crazy arcs were spreading. Batman's face straightened, and he jumped out of the window, rolled on the ground, unloaded, stood up, and raised his head to look at the sky. The dark clouds in the sky became more and more terrifying, covering the sky and darkening the environment. The cold wind blew, and the lightning snakes swam terribly, flashing Batman's cold face. Suddenly, in the next moment, nearly 18 magnetic bat darts were thrown out of Batman's hands and flew into the distant sky. Countless lightning snakes flashed in the dark environment with their fangs and claws. Boom. Thunder flashed, crazy dark clouds surged, and thunder burst out, flashing down from the dark clouds, hitting the bat darts one after another, knocking Batman down one by one. Batman's heart sank. His face was calm, and then he threw all the items that could attract electromagnetics from his body into the sky one by one. The continuous sound of thunder explosions kept hitting down in the air, emitting a burnt smell. Until the end, Batman no longer had a bat object that could be thrown. He stood in the cold wind, wearing a Batman suit, his cape fluttering. In the dark night, the lightning flashed his resolute and calm face. The cold wind blew the dark bat cape wildly. The leaves rustled, as if they were mourning the last hero of resistance. Batman looked back for the last time, and saw the yellow arc of electricity piercing out of the wooden house. Then, he pressed the device on his belt, set himself into a strong magnetic field collection, and attracted lightning rods. He left the wooden house, and ran away madly. In an instant, the thunder in the sky surged wildly, and countless thunders gathered into thousands of lightning snakes bursting towards Batman and the wooden house. Then the thunder spun in a circle, gathering huge flashing electric currents, chasing Batman from behind, and struck him. The electric current of thousands of thunderbolts instantly burned to a temperature of over 1,000,000 degrees, melting Batman's armor in an instant, exploding with a loud noise. His body was instantly charred by the thunderbolts, and he suddenly knelt down from running. The charred body, which exuded a scorched smell, fell to the ground with a bang amid the flashing thunderbolts. Batman, dead. Ah. A huge painful sound suddenly rang out in the wooden house. The Flash, who was madly squeezing every cell of his body on the cosmic treadmill, burst into tears. Every cell and pore in his body was piercing with yellow arcs. After Batman was killed by thousands of thunderbolts, the next moment, countless thunderbolts came from the dark clouds and struck the wooden house with their fangs and claws, flashing the paleness of everything in the world. Bang! A huge explosion sounded, and the airwaves were outward, shaking and shaking towards the ocean. The wooden house was torn apart by thunderbolts, exposing the crazy yellow arcs, as if the tender body of a child was fighting against an adult, unwilling to resist. At the moment the wooden house was torn apart, the yellow arc of light burst out with an intensity beyond any other time. Boom. Thunder tore the yellow arc of light, and the moment it struck, the figure of the Flash suddenly disappeared on the cosmic treadmill. The entire cosmic treadmill exploded in the face of thunder, bursting with flames, smashing the wooden house away, and a large charred pit was blown out on the spot, and the flames swayed on the surrounding dead leaves. The thunder in the sky quickly dissipated, and the night sky was clear again. Antarctic geocentric square. Badi slowly opened his ruthless eyes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 Endless August-4. August 2nd. In the morning, the sun shone down from the windowsill, illuminating the top floor of the Emperor building brightly and transparently. Dust swam in the air and squirmed slightly. Bati's skin was shiny and absorbing the energy of the sun. He lifted the quilt, which was very messy. He stretched his spine behind his shoulders, and his spine shook and stretched like a dragon, which made him feel much more awake. He looked at Raven, who was lying on the bed, and patted her snow-white buttocks. Raven turned over with a grumble, and continued to turn over and sleep. Seeing that she had no strength to get up, Badi got out of bed by himself, walked into the bathroom, and took a shower. He thought while washing. When he finished controlling the earth, he accidentally saw the traces of Flash and Batman. He condensed lightning and killed Batman, while Flash traveled through time again and no one knew where he went. On August 1st, he spent the whole day carefully checking what was different about the whole world. However, there was no change, and there was no new memory change in his head. If there was any new memory, it would be because his soul would get his consent before it could enter his head. Without any change, he had no idea what the Flash's final struggle was. After a day, Badi could only secretly raise his vigilance and gradually return to normal. After taking a shower, Badi put on a bathrobe and came to the living room. The door of the house was opened by little Hera. "What are you still doing here? You didn't forget the interview, did you?" Little Hera put her hands on her waist, glared a few times, and then directly pulled Badi away in his bathrobe. Little Hera didn't mind him accepting an interview with his friends in a bathrobe, and Badi didn't bother to change into formal clothes. He was pulled to her room by little Hera. Inside, little Louis, who looked excited, was pretending to be serious like a little adult. He sat on a chair and stared at Badi with excited and burning eyes. "Look, this is a legendary, real-life Majesty Bamulodi," little Hera said nonchalantly. "Hurry up and interview. After the interview, we'll go to the amusement park." Badi smiled and spread his hands, rubbed the hair on the top of little Hera's head, and greeted Louise. Louise suppressed her excitement several times. As far as she knew, this was the first time that Majesty Bamulodi accepted a real-life interview. This might win the Pulitzer Prize. There is no doubt that it will win. It is an unprecedented interview with the real-life side of Majesty Bamulodi. No pighead dares to put other news over his head. Just thinking about it, Louise was excited, a 12-year-old Pulitzer Prize winner. Although it depends a little on connections and the real-life side of Majesty, isn't it a kind of strength? Ahem. The interview begins. Louise coughed a few times in a formal manner, suppressing her excitement and showing her young journalistic qualities. Badi nodded and looked at her with a smile. "Your Majesty, what do you do first thing when you wake up in the morning? Open your eyes." "Just kidding. Take a shower, make yourself more energetic." "What do you eat for breakfast?" "It depends on my mood. Sometimes I eat barbecue, seafood, sushi, etc." "What's your work schedule in the morning?" "What's your latest work plan?" "Inspect the implementation of the policy." "The latest plan?" "I plan to build an underwater tourist city on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, so that my people can see the world in the ocean. Then will it be developed to outer space later, and we can also watch the space scenery?" "Yes, the current single soldier Iron Man armor alone is enough for ordinary people to travel in space. I will not be stingy and let more ordinary people see more scenery and broaden their horizons." It was a very ordinary interview. After the interview, little Louis took a photo with Badi and left with little Hera. It was an ordinary day, and it passed as usual. August 13th. Underground Research Institute. After obtaining the Doomsday Cell and Hale's head memory, the progress of the Doomsday Cell has been greatly advanced. Now it is possible to produce a more perfect serum than the Doomsday made by Jor-El. After calculation, the gene repair chain of Doomsday cells has been successful in fighting against body factors. From the fact that Luthor was turned into a monster by the defective gene serum, he was able to recover his vitality after receiving the perfect Doomsday gene, and he has the power to evolve and the energy to repair his body. It can be seen that our research has basically been successful. Jenny, wearing a white coat and holding a tablet, introduced it. After Luthor failed in his research on Doomsday cells and turned into a monster, he was locked up by Badi and used as an experimental subject. Jenny, who loves biology and has a talent for biological research, directly replaced Luthor and became a member of the Doomsday Cell Research Laboratory. We have eliminated the violent cell factors of Doomsday, the emotional factors that cause Luthor to be unable to control, and destroyed his mind. The tyranny and killing desire weakened, which will weaken the power of Doomsday cells a lot, but it will not have any burden on the mind. Of course, this is for your powerful soul, Badi. Ordinary people still do not have the injection of Doomsday cells. Badi nodded, and on the same day, he injected the Doomsday serum, allowing the Doomsday cells to gradually improve and evolve in his body and strengthen his physique. from the beginning of carrying the Earth. Mentally, the pressure of the Earth has made Badi's powerful Kryptonian body a little difficult to breathe, like an ordinary person carrying a mountain at any time, extremely uncomfortable. The Earth is not easy to carry. The appearance of the Doomsday Serum just allows him to enter the next stage, carrying the Earth, which is a lot easier. On this day, Badi injected the Doomsday Serum and there was no accident. August 15th. It is rare that Badi, Raven, Pamela, and Jenny celebrated the Mid-Autumn Festival in the East. Several people covered their faces. The three women walked hand in hand on the streets of the East, talking non-stop, curiously, looking everywhere at different races and different festival atmospheres from the metropolis. After Badi's order, the whole East glowed with a more lively atmosphere than ever before for this festival. The retro and modern Mid-Autumn Festival lantern boats swam on the lakeside for tourists to play. There were many poems and riddles, red light, and laughter. The lakeside was full of spring. There were also many official staff members, wearing ancient costumes, handfu from different eras, costumes of various ethnic groups in the East, and even white and black people from other regions, who traveled across the ocean to participate in the festival. This festival was unusually beautiful. August 30th. Emperor Building, evening, setting sun, dinner time. Raven, Pamela, and Jenny prepared a delicious meal. Several women sat at the table and chatted enthusiastically while eating. Badi, why don't you invite Fyra to dinner as well? Jenny asked curiously. They knew that Fyra and Badi had some affair on Krypton. Let Fyra alone, to restore the honor of Krypton on the moon. Is this really okay? Pamela said. We can invite her. After that, Raven took out the communicator and contacted Fyra, but was politely rejected. Badi shook his head lightly and said helplessly, this takes time, both me and her. Everyone nodded. Raven nodded, and suddenly became serious. Well said, it looks like our waists are going to break tonight. Pamela and Jenny held their lips, held their lips, held their lips, held their lips, but they couldn't help it. Ha ha ha. Badi calmly forked a piece of beef and ate it. The next day, the three women couldn't get out of bed. August 31st. Suddenly, Badi's expression changed, and he burst out a sonic boom directly from the Emperor Building, soaring into the sky, and flew towards the outskirts of Metropolis. In the air, with farsightedness, he suddenly saw a hole torn on Highway 6 on the outskirts of Metropolis. The Flash's eyes were about to burst, and he was swirling with blow arcs. He ran out of the torn hole like crazy, leaving a black trace of arcs on Highway 6, and then tore the space again, and disappeared in front of Badi. This was the first time Badi saw him, since the Flash disappeared a month ago, and he still didn't understand what the Flash was doing. That day, Badi was puzzled. No matter how he calculated, he could not calculate this strange phenomenon. In the end, he could only continue his normal life. At night, August 31st. 23:59. Badi closed his eyes and went to sleep. Time jumped. August 1st, 0000 hours. Chapter 312 Endless August -5. August 2nd. The sun shone brightly on the Imperial Building, spreading out the magnificent scenery in the morning. Top floor. The sun gradually moved from the window, gently shining on the dust, from the ground, the corner of the bed, to Badi's face, emitting a crystal light. Badi slightly opened his eyes, facing the sun, shook his shoulders a few times, his spine rose like a dragon, and the warm sun reflected on his face, giving him a familiar feeling. It was the early morning time he enjoyed every day. He lifted the quilt, stood up, and glanced at Pamela with a funny look. Badi was stunned for a moment, feeling as if it seemed nothing. He walked to the bathroom. After washing his body in the bathroom and taking a bath, he suddenly felt that little Hera would take him to interview her friends. Of course, Badi had promised to give Louis an exclusive interview. Calculating the time, it was about time. Badi woke up immediately. With little Hera's anxious personality, of course she would take him. As expected. Bang. Little Hera kicked the bathroom door crooked with a kick. Seeing that Badi was still taking a bath, she angrily put her hands on her hips and scolded. It's already so late, and you're still washing your butt. Get up. Little Hera stepped into the bathroom and pulled Badi's big hand. Her little face was ferocious. She used all her strength, but still couldn't pull Badi up. She just splashed water on her white skirt. I remember. There are still 5 minutes before the interview. Badi said helplessly. Seeing little Hera's ferocious look, he couldn't help but follow her strength and was pulled up by her. Okay, get the clothes. Go over now. Hearing that Badi agreed to go over and stood up, little Hera raised her eyebrows with a ferocious face, ran out of the bathroom quickly, and took a white shirt and beach pants for Badi. Then she pulled Badi to her room. Little Louis was already flushed with excitement. He was sitting waiting in danger, and excitedly began to interview His Majesty's private life. Your Majesty, can you poop? Badi was choked immediately. As the supreme ruler of the entire earth, he was worshipped as a god by his subordinates, and loved so much, that he was already a godlike existence. If he could poop, it would immediately destroy the image of Badi as a supreme god in the minds of nearly 7 billion people in the world. If he didn't poop, how could an organism not poop? It's just that Badi can control his body, and no longer needs the traditional squatting form. At this moment, Badi saw the strongman style of Louis interview. It was simply not in accordance with the routine. It was said that the interview was lifelike, and it was so lifelike! Exclamation mark. Next, Louis was very concerned about Badi's strange and eccentric aspects. It didn't follow the general routine at all. Finally, the interview ended. Badi was sure that 12-year-old Louis, the youngest Pulitzer Prize winner, appeared. August 13th. In the underground laboratory, after Jenny's explanation, his own understanding and Hera's calculations, the real doomsday cell was perfected. Using Luthor, who had already turned into a monster, as a test, Luthor was unfortunately unable to withstand the emotional desire for killing and tyranny. In the process of becoming more powerful, he was transformed by Bat into a huge and hideous piece of chocolate and died. Seeing this, Jenny specially removed the emotional control factor in doomsday cells again, reducing the desire for tyranny and killing, and thus the strength, which was greatly reduced, but the extreme evolution and recovery were not hindered. Bat had no problem and immediately injected the doomsday serum, allowing the doomsday serum to slowly change in his body. This solved the cell pressure phenomenon caused by Bat's mental pressure caused by the Earth's pressure. Master, in Hale's memory, a unified information terminal has been counted, which effectively allows artificial intelligence program creatures to materialize and have emotions, and can basically reach the level of intelligence of Brainiac. The artificial intelligence Harris said, requesting instructions. Bad raised his eyebrows. He had no objection to the fact that the artificial intelligence Hera could still evolve one step further, and immediately ordered her to evolve. Stay loyal to me, Hera, evolve, and become a creature with real emotions. Okay, Master, thank you. August 15th. Badi took Raven, Pamela, and Jenny to participate in the Oriental Mid-Autumn Festival. Walking on the painted boat decorated with ancient costumes, and on the lakeside, the red lanterns reflected the gorgeous beauties. Badi smiled lightly, as if he was pleased and relieved. A familiar and warm feeling spread from his heart. August 30th. Emperor Building, evening, setting sun, dinner time. Diana brought the unique products of Paradise Island, roasted ancient saber-toothed tiger, and joined Badi's family for dinner. Eating with great interest. Diana, it's great that you are here. We still have the energy to work tomorrow. Raven was very moved. He sawed a piece of tiger meat with a knife and fork, bit it with his pearly teeth, and chewed it. Jenny nodded. Tomorrow I have to study the genetically bred varieties of Tyrannosaurus Rex and Argylus Magic Dragon, so I can't be powerless. Pamela agreed. My Middle East screening plan is underway, and I'm very busy. Diana was embarrassed. Although my waist is better, I can't bear it. Badi glanced at the women indifferently. The next day, Diana had a backache, and couldn't get up, and couldn't go back to Paradise Island. Raven had a backache, and couldn't get up, so he couldn't work. Jenna's whole body ached, and couldn't get up. The genetically bred varieties of Tyrannosaurus Rex and Argylus Magic Dragon failed. Pamela had a backache, and couldn't get up. The Middle East screening plan was delayed. August 31st. Badi got up from the bed. Suddenly, his eyes flashed with a fierce light, and he didn't even put on his clothes. Exploded with a sonic boom, and leaped into the sky. He sensed the earth, and from the earth, he felt that a hole was torn. A crack was torn in the center of Star City, and the people around were screaming in the morning. The Flash walked out of the crack like a mad dog, his eyes bulging, his body swelling with crazy blow arcs, and shuffled out of the crack, leaving a black scorched track of arc explosion on the ground, and then tore through the crack again and shuffled away. Badi looked stern, looking far away, seeing all this. He was puzzled. Even if he used multiple methods to calculate, he couldn't figure out what the Flash was doing at this moment. With many doubts and confusions, Badi could only temporarily increase his vigilance. At night, August 31st, 23:59. Badi closed his eyes and went to sleep. Time began to jump to the next day. Tick, tick, tick. August 1st, 0000 hours, 0001, 0002, 0003. Chapter 313 Endless August -6. August 2nd. Empire Building, top floor. The sun still shines out from the window, illuminating the dust in the air. The sun seems to move on the ground, slowly moving to the bedside, the quilt, and Badi's face. Badi's skin begins to glow, and a faint halo shimmers from his fair skin, like a god on earth. The skin absorbs the sun's energy, awakening him. Badi slightly opened his eyes, and the sun shone his eyes like gold. He lifted the quilt, raised his shoulders, and his lumbar spine shook like a dragon. Badi stretched lazily, facing the sun, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He looked aside, and saw Fyra, who was exhausted, lying on the pillow. Her snow-white back outlined a spine groove to her thighs. Her snow-white body with well-developed muscle lines was like a smooth white snake. She snored tiredly, which was a bit cute. Badi decided to use a domineering method to make this disobedient and resolute woman surrender, no longer accommodating her, and let her submit to him, whether it was emotion, honor, or body. Badi was domineering, and violently destroyed the past, and ended the past. Fyra already had love for him, and Badi felt pity for her. In his heart, he didn't want her to indulge in the past. Even if it was forced, he had to force her to connect with him. Therefore, Fyra's struggle last night, the battle on the bed, and the thick fluid of the two rolling on the mattress formed a good start. Badi stared at Fyra with warm eyes, and there was a faint warmth in his heart. Suddenly, a sunny smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He stretched out his right hand and gently patted Fyra's white, elastic, and strong buttocks. Fyra frowned and could not get up directly. She was too tired, and her iron body could not recover for a while. She rubbed her face against the pillow. Her neat short hair was like a sheep. Her delicate face and small mouth were slightly open. She snored slightly and continued to sleep. At this moment, Badi was suddenly stunned. At the moment of hitting Fyra's butt, it seemed as if he had an illusion, as if he had done this many times, countless times. For a moment, it was as if someone hit Badi's head with a hammer, and his eyes were blurred. Countless familiar feelings seemed to drill into his brain. At this moment, a strong sense of deja vu suddenly appeared in front of Badi. This scene. I have done it myself. What's going on? Badi's pupils shrank, as if he felt the scene he had experienced before, as if he had hit his woman's butt countless times. This feeling appeared in an instant and disappeared, attracting his attention. This feeling was very similar to the time when he and the Flash traveled through time to save Jenny. There were memories surrounding his brain, waiting for him to allow this memory covered by time to enter his head. However, Badi released the control of his mind and allowed the memory to enter his brain, but no memory entered his brain, as if all this was just a dream, and the familiarity of a glimpse had disappeared. Bang! Badi clenched his fists fiercely, making a sonic boom. His muscles were instantly stronger than diamonds, reflecting the sun's strong, steel-cast white jade body, tough, and radiant with crystal light. At this moment, his face was gloomy as water, and his eyes flashed fiercely. Flash. The name of the Flash burst out from the corner of his mouth, and his face was gloomy and terrifying. There is no doubt that this must have been created by the Flash. His soul is firmly rooted on this earth, especially in contact with the earth, controlling the earth, and becoming one with the earth. Even if he wants to change the past, he will not be able to travel through time, because of his own reasons. And, what method did the Flash use to make him have such a strong sense of deja vu? Do you have the feeling of having experienced it? Bati's face was terribly gloomy. At this moment, he suddenly had a telepathic thought. Little Hera would pull him to accept the interview with Louis. Sure enough, the next moment, the door was opened, and little Hera stepped into the room with her calves, and saw Badi. Badi looked up, his eyes were shocked, and his pupils were tightened. His muscles were as tight as steel, and in the sun, they reflected fluorescence. His heart was turbulent, ripples were thousands of layers, and he couldn't calm down. Sure enough, what did the Flash do? Little Hera was originally going to ask for the blame, staring with bright eyes, and met Badi's shocked and tightened pupils. He couldn't help but pause, without any other thoughts, only worried about Badi. Old Bay, what happened? Little Hera asked. In fact, Badi's expression was enough to show the seriousness of the matter. Cancel all schedules, suspend all intelligent plans, use all computing power to calculate the current situation, build a model, use the speed force, simulate the Flash's behavior pattern, and study the difference between the speed force and time. I want to find the Flash. Badi got off the bed with a gloomy face, standing barefoot on the ground. The sun shone obliquely on his majestic body, bringing a cruel shadow color sense. Little Hera nodded, with a serious face, and executed Badi's order. On that day, Louis left with regret. His Majesty was too busy to accept the interview. The Krypton plan on the Diamond Moon was suspended. After the Space Defense Base Station drew out the computing power of the minimum maintenance base, other computing research capabilities were fully mobilized, and the underground research laboratory stopped all research projects. Everything is given priority to the research and calculation of the Speed Force. August 13th. Badi did not inject the Doomsday Serum according to the original experience. But he had a sense of deja vu, and he should have injected the serum at this time. August 15th. Badi and his wives did not go to Dadanfang to participate in the Mid-Autumn Festival. But he had a sense of deja vu. He should be attending the Mid-Autumn Festival at this time. On the evening of August 30th, Badi did not have dinner with his wives. Now, the time has come to August 31st. In the center of the underground laboratory, countless thick lines are connected to the huge mainframe like black snakes on the ground. Badi was dressed in white and had a stern face. The artificial intelligence Hera projected a beautiful figure, dressed in plain white clothes, with skin and arms as white as lilies, and beautiful curly hair flowing down her back. She showed a beautiful, delicate, and majestic look, and her eyes were bright and energetic, as if she could see through everything. Hera saluted Badi elegantly and calmly, with tenderness and sweetness. The information terminal organism is complete, and will monitor any abnormal movement. Badi nodded slightly. Hera turned into a data stream, and disappeared bit by bit. The next moment, Badi suddenly had a strong sense of deja vu, and subconsciously rushed up from the underground laboratory directly to the sky, suspended in the night sky of the metropolis. The far-sighted vision was turned on, and the eyes were like torches. The night sky was cold, and under a crescent moon, there was Highway 6 outside the metropolis. A crack suddenly appeared, and the Flash ran out of the crack like a mad dog, with a hideous face and eyes that were about to burst. He was already insane, and ran out of the crack with crazy blow arcs, leaving a charred track on the road, and rushed into the crack again. Time began to move subtly. August 31st. 23:59. Beep. 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 August 1st. 0000 hours. 0001. 0002. Chapter 314 Endless August. More than a million reincarnations. The Madness of the Flash. 7. August 2nd. Emperor Building. Upper floor. The sun shines down tirelessly, like water, crawling on the ground, the foot of the bed, and climbing to Badi's face. His face is shining, and he opens his eyes slightly. In his eyes, there is the light reflected by the sun, which matches his fair, strong, and majestic body, beautiful and colorful, and extraordinary charm. Jenny is sleeping on her side, curled up in the placenta, with a sexy body white, flushed, and tired and snoring. Badi smiles. When he reaches out his hand to pat Jenna's soft butt, little Hera has opened the door, and walked into the room step by step with a steady pace. She is not lively like a little girl, which is not in line with the personality that little Hera has given herself. Little Hera stands by the bed, waiting for Badi to pat Jenna's butt, very indifferent. Badi has no choice but to retract his claws. If I remember correctly, there are still 6 minutes before Louis' interview. When this sentence appeared in Badi's mind, little Hera saw Badi stop, as if she could read Badi's mind, and said, "Old Bay, you are not wrong. Louis's interview. There are still 6 minutes, but it has been cancelled. I'll let her go back." Huh. Badi raised his eyebrows. Could little Hera read minds? So powerful? Even his inner words can be read. The next moment when Badi just raised his eyebrows in doubt, little Hera's face was filled with a faint loneliness and silence, and there seemed to be a long loneliness in her eyes. The moment she saw Badi, she was slightly warmed for a moment. "Everything is for my beloved master. Follow your orders. Everything is under surveillance. Go to the deep central host. All preparations will be answered for you." Little Hera smiled slightly, raised her head. The young child's delicate body, wearing a white princess dress, seemed to be standing alone in the infinite darkness and loneliness, independent, silent, quiet, and alone. She looked at Badi and couldn't help but feel a glimmer of dawn in her heart, warm, and her eyes flashed with warmth. Badi stared at little Hera for a moment, then walked in front of her, pulled this lonely figure into his arms, and gave her some warmth. Badi didn't even know what happened to little Hera. He just felt it strongly. Little Hera was very lonely at this moment, like a lighthouse keeper stationed in the ocean, always guiding that ray of light, guiding herself. Badi suddenly felt it, and gently embraced little Hera in his arms. The young and delicate body was like fragile porcelain, and he gently embraced her. "No matter what happens, I'm still here." Little Hera was stunned for a moment, then smiled and pressed her face against Badi's chest. This chest was worth waiting for by the lonely lighthouse. After a long time, little Hera in a white dress became lively again, pulling Badi to the elevator, letting Badi take the elevator to the central mainframe deep in the bottom. As for herself, she jumped to find Louis and go to the playground. Deep in the bottom, the central mainframe. The thick lines on the ground spread like black giant snakes on the mainframe. Hera, the artificial intelligence, projected a beautiful figure, dressed in white clothes, with skin and arms as white as lilies, and beautiful curly hair flowing down her back, revealing a beautiful, delicate, and majestic look. Her eyes were bright and full of loneliness, as if she could see through everything. In front of Badi, Hera smiled with relief. Her beauty captivated everyone. "Hera, tell me, what happened? I have a hunch that it seems to be something bad." Badi frowned and said with some doubt. He stood tall and majestic, and even though Hera was an artificial intelligence, he felt relieved from the bottom of his heart. Hera smiled and began to answer. "Master, from the time I studied the Speed Force to protect me, completed the information terminal organism, and completed recording all this, I have gone through 1,723,821 reincarnations." Badi's face was stern. His eyes stared at Hera, and waves rose in his heart, flashing with an extremely bad feeling. 1,723,821 reincarnations. What is this? Hera would never lie to him, which made Badi look very unhappy. After more than 1 million reincarnations, he seemed to have just slept. No reaction at all. "Hera, tell me in detail." "Yes, Master, I'm very happy to do so." Hera greeted him and began to tell the story slowly. "I don't know how many times the Master has realized that there is something wrong with the whole world. That August, he used the Speed Force to complete the information terminal organism for me, so that I can maintain the biological function of recording information in the endless reincarnation. The Flash has been using the time characteristics of the Speed Force to cover the whole world. Every time it passes midnight on August 31st, time will be covered by him and turn back to August 2nd, the moment when the Master got up. Since that time, it has been 1,723,821 reincarnations so far. We have been reincarnating in August." Badi's face changed, and his eyes shrank into a small dot. "That is to say, in an unknown time, I have spent 1,723,821 months, and on average, I have spent 143,651 years. That is to say, Badi has wasted 140,000 years. This is simply a terrifying thing that makes people vomit blood. Is the Flash going to cover all the memories of 140,000 years, along with time, and erase me? Badi's face was very ugly. How could he have thought that the Flash would have such an operation, making him reincarnate for 140,000 years without knowing it? List the things I have done, big and small, or I should be able to prevent such things. Okay, Master. Among them, Raven slept with me 523,454 times. Fire slept with me 326,754 times. Jenny slept with me 234,214 times. Pamela slept with me 294,954 times. And Diana slept with me 320,498 times. In addition, I slept with Little Hera 149,234 times. There were also millions of times when he slept alone and slept with many ladies. But these are not important. Hera just recorded every reincarnation in detail. Hug Little Hera 1,723,210 times. Hera's eyes were full of love and the corners of her mouth were raised. She looked at Badi with joy. This data also shows that, since Hera started this recording task, every time she woke up, except for the first few hundred times Badi, the rest of the times would hug Little Hera and comfort her. This kind of invisible heartache comfort simply made artificial intelligence sync and gave birth to the concept of love. This is also the reason why Hera can persist for such a long time. Every time, she can enjoy the comfort from the Master. Among them, the Master injected the perfect doomsday serum more than 1 million times. We tested and ambushed the Flash and failed more than 1.2 million times. It has been repeated more than 1.5 million times. The Flash has gone insane, crazy in the reincarnation. All reincarnations are recorded. Chapter 315 Endless August -8. Deep down, the central mainframe. Badi stood tall, like a pillar supporting the sky. He held his left hand with his right hand and gently rubbed his right thumb in the palm of his left hand. His face was expressionless, but his eyes flashed with a thoughtful look. He had learned what happened from the records of the artificial intelligence Hera. The whole world was reincarnating in the infinite August, and there was no escape. The Flash was crazy, constantly covering the world, changing the coverage that started in August. Before the memory from the outside world entered his mind, the Flash had already run out of the infinite August reincarnation again, covering the world. But more than 1 million times of coverage still have accumulated remnants, so every time, Badi would have a strong sense of deja vu, as if he had experienced all of this before, as if it was a choice in a parallel universe. But that was not a choice in a parallel universe, but a real experience, an infinite experience. There are definitely more than 1,723,821 reincarnations, but the reincarnations that can be recorded are 1,723,821. There is no record. Since Badi started to calculate the time, based on the increasing intensity of the sense of deja vu, it has reached tens of millions of times, millions of years, tens of millions of reincarnations. Badi's eyes flashed with cold light, and he took a breath of cold air. He pressed his palm with his right thumb. This kind of force is enough to press out diamonds and flatten buildings. No wonder he has become unconscious, and only knows to follow the obsession of staying, and keep running endlessly. The Flash has been covered more than tens of millions of times and nearly 1 million years, which has wiped out his reason. Especially in the Speed Force, the time is different from that in the outside world. Therefore, the Flash is actually likely to have experienced more than 100 million years of running time, and has been running alone and madly. This cannot make people not crazy and lose their minds. Have you calculated the position of the Flash? Badi said in a deep voice. The Flash must be stopped in advance, and cannot be allowed to run to the end. Once the Flash runs to his own death, it will take countless trillions of years. Everything accumulated, the huge accumulated time, the infinite chaos, will explode in an instant and destroy the entire Earth and everything about it. It is impossible to calculate the location of the Flash. In the past records, more than 78,432 times appeared in different directions of Highway 6 outside the metropolis, accounting for 7% of the data. The place with the most appearances, Star City ranked second, 63,489 times. Gotham 63,323 times. New York 52,324. Comprehensive data shows that the Flash's appearance trajectory is not exactly the same. It may appear on the same highway in the same city, but it will not appear in exactly the same position. Among them, the Master squatted on Highway 6 in a way of ambush, closest to the Flash, and passed by him 21 times. Harris said slowly, projecting a beautiful figure, standing beside Badi, with emotional concern and warmth in her eyes. After more than 140,000 years of experience, she has developed the emotional thinking of a living being, the emotion called love, which makes her stick to Badi all the time. Otherwise, the emotion of a living being will collapse like the Flash after more than 140,000 years of repetition. Badi nodded, thinking. After more than 1.2 million failures, he didn't even know where the Flash ran from. He only passed by the Flash 21 times. The speed of the Flash has surpassed Badi by far, and there is no way to stop it. In this August, Badi can do too little. Too little to use technology, and he can't use technology to research any weapons to stop the Flash. So, inject the perfect doomsday serum. Badi said. He already understood the severity of the matter and clearly understood the consequences of his experience. But this is a very empty feeling, just like the confusion of the brain, because Badi has not really experienced such a long time of 140,000 years, which makes him feel a little unreal and empty. Confused between the real and the fake, but in an instant, he understood what he had to do. The Flash needed to be stopped. Otherwise, he would be in August, in an endless cycle, and when the end came, he would die. Okay, Master, Harris said slowly. As usual, this was the operation that countless Badi would choose. Some did not choose, but wanted to use the Earth's huge gravity to stop the Flash. But that ultimately failed, because the Flash was too fast. Mobilizing the Earth's magnetic field control in front of the Flash, it seemed slower than a snail. This failure situation, after several times, was seen by Badi later, who understood it and gave up. Hara had already synthesized the Doomsday Serum. With more than 1 million successful experiences, the Doomsday Serum had been perfected by her to an extreme, perfect state. Soon, other Hera models, wearing white coats and holding syringes, handed them to Badi. The serum in the syringe was blood red and translucent. Badi's eyes flashed coldly, and his body stood still, tall and majestic like a giant, and as steady as a mountain. Without a trace of hesitation, he tore the skin of his heart, and tore the chest muscles. Blood began to flow down his chest. The heart was faintly visible beating, and blood dripped on the ground. The heart was beating like a drum, ringing in the quiet deep space. Controlling the non-healing, he had an expressionless face and directly inserted the syringe into the visible heart. He pushed the syringe and injected the Doomsday Serum into the heart. The heart quickly began to accept the stronger Doomsday Serum. Starting from the heart, in an instant, it was as if sand was flowing, sticking to the blood vessels in the body, and began to flow, bringing Badi a needle-like feeling. The genes in the body began to slowly aggregate and change. It was not until about 26 days that this adaptation would transform Badi into a Doomsday, with all the evolutionary characteristics of the Doomsday, strength and adaptability, reaching an unparalleled level. But even so, they could not catch up with the Flash. In the past, they had passed by each other 21 times, but they had not caught the Flash once. Suddenly, Hara showed surprise on her face. Master, here it comes. Suddenly, the whole Earth seemed to be a sleeping giant, opened its eyes, and became active in an instant. The whole Earth seemed to be flickering with white light. From a grain of sand, a speck of dust, wood chips, plants, humans, buildings, oceans, and atmospheric molecules, they all flickered slightly, and emitted a white light spot. At this moment, the whole Earth emitted countless white lights, which gathered into a river, and rushed towards the deepest part of the Imperial building. Chapter 316, Spirit of Existence. The deepest part of the Imperial building. The white light gathered, and turned Badi into a white, warm, and soft silkworm. The light spots had no temperature, but they made Badi feel comfortable, just like soaking in a hot spring in winter. From the depths of his body, his genes, blood, and bones, they all seemed to be immersed in it. The indescribable feeling of comfort seeped into every pore and skin of Badi. Badi seemed to have warmth in his heart. He opened his hands and looked at the dense and surging white light spots pouring into his body in surprise. His body was warm like spring, and it was so comfortable that it seemed like he had taken hormones. This was completely out of his control. However, this influx of white light spots had a great benefit to Badi. Master, you didn't leave too much information like this. Hera stood out with a graceful demeanor and a happy face. But you once said that this is the self-rescue of the Earth. In the 21 times when you were closest to the Flash, Master, you also injected the Doomsday Serum and won the favor of the Earth. You once said that this is the self-rescue of the Earth. The Earth is saving itself. Everything will be known after you merge. Countless points of light, like waterless travelers in the desert, saw Badi as if they saw a clear spring in the oasis and were extremely hungry and thirsty. It is also like a life-saving straw for a drowning person, desperately grabbing Badi and merging into Badi's body. This is the will of the Earth. This is the spirit of existence. A vague will. The spirit of existence is the fate of the entire universe, and its will is the fate of everyone. The spirit of existence has extremely powerful power and can control all life, so that the universe follows the trajectory of destiny. In other words, the spirit of existence believes that Badi's existence is reasonable. He accepts Badi's existence and follows the trajectory of the destiny of this universe. That's why he appears at this moment, merges into Badi's body, merges into Badi's spirit and soul, and wants to save the Earth with Badi. However, there is a problem. Badi's soul is different and unique. The spirit of existence is just a vague concept of destiny, guarding the universe. Basically, each universe has its own spirit of existence. This also leads to the fact that the spirit of existence that gathers together has no possibility of giving birth to another will and thought in Badi's spirit and soul and completely fulfilling Badi. Half an hour later, when all the light was completely integrated into Badi's body, Badi suddenly felt a close feeling that he was the Earth. Every tree on the Earth was his hair, the Earth was his skin, the rivers and oceans were his blood, and the center of the Earth was his heart. This is more intuitive than using 17 load-bearing columns to control the weather and gravity and magnetic field of the Earth. Now Badi is no longer controlling, but the Earth is his body. This sudden feeling is really present in his own body. I see. In an instant, Badi also understood the plan of the spirit of existence. All of this is self-rescue, choosing Badi's body to save the Earth. If there is no accident, theoretically speaking, the spirit of existence is the light beast of the white light ring. It merges into the body of Badi and then condenses the white light to control Badi's body. But under Badi's soul, it cannot condense the light beast, cannot control Badi, and can only become Badi's helper. No wonder he can't leave any information. Badi's mouth drew a smile. If he left any information about the spirit of existence, the spirit of existence would probably not come to him to save the Earth. This is probably because he felt that he had always loved the Earth and made it more beautiful, and that the Flash was targeting him, and the infinite reincarnation was about to destroy the Earth. So the spirit of existence was born to control himself and stop the Flash. Master, this is less than the previous 21 processes. From 1 hour, each time it is reducing the time by almost 1 minute and 2 seconds. Hera reminded. This also shows that the spirit of existence has been running at the peak of the Flash, and it has been almost infinitely weakened. When even the spirit of existence cannot be condensed, it is the moment when the speed force causes the universe to explode and be destroyed. I know. Badi nodded, and the spirit of existence was gradually weakening. The existence of the spirit of existence, integrated into Badi's body, brought about changes not in the intuitive combat power, but in the control of the Earth and the subtle changes in insight. In other words, in the end, we still have to use the Earth to find the location where the Flash traveled. For Badi, the Earth is like the skin and hair of Badi's body, just like a needle, which quickly pricks and makes ordinary people feel pain. But the moment you react subconsciously, the needle escapes. This is very fast, and it depends on whether you can stop the needle from piercing yourself in time. In other words, the spirit of existence makes Badi more meticulous and clearly perceives where the Flash will appear. Needless to say, Badi has used the Earth's magnetic field and all the places where he has passed by the Flash 21 times to calculate the location. Highway 6. This is also the location where the Flash appeared every time the spirit of existence merged into Badi's body 21 times. It's just that the location is different every time, and it can't be accurate to the millimeter, so the Flash flashed past him 21 times. As the location where the Flash first tore through space on August 31st, the space here is already extremely weak, as if anyone with a little ability can tear through the space here and perhaps get out of the parallel universe. Get ready, Hera. Combine the information from millions of times. Set up a gravity field on Highway 6. Static explosion distortion force field involving the gravitational field and the singularity vortex. Badi's eyes flashed with cold light. If possible, Badi wanted to destroy that area. He had done it before. He swallowed the area on Highway 6 outside the metropolis with the singularity vortex. But it was useless. Although the Flash was crazy, he still had a subconscious crisis avoidance. In the Speed Force, every second seemed like a year. It was enough for him to react and escape from the crisis. The Flash did not run directly into the depths of the singularity, but after entering a few hundred meters, he continued to tear through the space and disappeared, making it difficult for Badi to catch him. August 31st. After Badi controlled the Earth's magnetic field reaction test and used all the resources of the Bmilo Empire to calculate, Hera combined Badi's calculations and finally calculated a direction of the middle section of Highway 6. The sun shone on the asphalt of Highway 6, emitting a slightly distorted temperature. This is a desolate road, and the wind blows out the feeling of the desert. Badi, dressed in white, stood on the road, his eyes flashed with a cold light, and a scorching sun behind him, shining on his body, making him tall and majestic as a mountain. Boom. In an instant, like a demon coming to the world, a colorful and brilliant hole opened in front of Badi, and the Flash spoke out. His eyes turned into a flash of lightning. His face was hideous and distorted, his expression was crazy, and he was smiling at any time, with the corners of his mouth drawn up, exaggerated and crazy to the ears. The Flash appeared in the azure electric light with a crackling and crazy look on his face, like a mad electric demon who had lost his mind in the abyss, spitting out crazy saliva. He appeared on the road, with arcs of electricity dancing like dragons and snakes, and rushed towards Badi with a flash of light. Chapter 317. Killing the Flash in his arms. The scorching temperature, the distorted air, the asphalt road exudes a faint unpleasant smell of asphalt. The Flash is like a lightning demon in the abyss, with a crazy smile. His eyes are full of dazzling light, his whole body is covered in blue arcs, tearing through the cracks, and appearing on Highway 6. The position is better than ever, right in front of Badi, flashing blue lightning, rushing towards him. The gravity field, involving the gravitational field, involving gravity in different directions. The sky and the earth seem to have turned into two extreme vortexes and twisted, involving every inch of space here. Boom. The Flash is smiling wildly, going crazy in the lightning, and appearing in a flash. He paused for 0.04 seconds, so that people can get a glimpse of him, and see his figure clearly. As crazy as a demon, his thin figure is swirling with countless blue lightning, crackling, and hitting every particle of the air. The arc is crazy and mad. He is bathed in the lightning, like a demon. Then, this short visible vision turned into a blur again. On the body of the Flash, blue lightning rose up more crazily, waving his claws crazily, and the frequency of the Speed Force field tore everything apart. The Speed Force that surpassed all other frequencies instantly tore apart the gravity field, involved the gravitational field, and caused them to collapse. Like an unstoppable lightning, the whole person turned into a flash of lightning, faster than sound, faster than light, running out of the restrictions of the force field, leaving charred tracks on the ground. Flash. Badi stepped forward with a fierce face. In an instant, veins on his body burst out, muscles tied, and his high chest swelled, tearing his shirt and white windbreaker to pieces, and suddenly transformed into a 7-meter tall giant, as hard as rock steel, with blue veins running all over his face, ferocious and terrifying. He roared under the scorching sun, and the sound waves spread far away. In an instant, the two collided. The Flash was gone in an instant, like a high-speed train, with only the smoke and dust behind him flying. With an incomparable arc of lightning, the arc flashed and rushed into Badi. Bang! Without stopping, the Flash ran for who knows how long, and directly ran into Badi. Badi's ferocious whites of the eyes were bulging with bloodshot, and in an instant, it was like a white dwarf crashing into him head-on, exploding a huge sonic boom cloud, tearing up all the surrounding matter, and a huge crater over 100 kilometers appeared, and the earth was shaking. The Flash gathered more than 1,000,000 years of kinetic energy, and hit Badi's chest like a rag, pushing his body forward. Badi seemed to feel his chest bones completely shattered. At this moment, he was like an ordinary person riding a high-speed train, with the front of the train. The ground was directly sunk by his thick legs and feet, and he was pushed backwards continuously, pushed by the Flash, plowing out 2 huge long pits, and gravel was constantly being scratched from Badi's back and feet. Shock. Badi's eyes were red, his teeth were bared, and his eyes were fierce. His arms were thick, originally thicker than a bucket, with blue veins bursting, and now they were twice as thick, with blue veins completely torn, and blood spurting out. The muscle fibers inside were constantly wriggling terribly, evolving, absorbing kinetic energy, and evolving enough to resist this terrifying kinetic energy. It was only a moment, and the Flash madly hit Badi, and he hit him in an instant, plowing out 2 huge long pits, and gravel splashed, destroying the road. The gravel dust was raised in an instant, and with a bang, the road was damaged. Flash. Die. Badi's eyes were horrible. The impact was like a white dwarf, smashing his chest into pieces. Then he reorganized, evolved, and absorbed kinetic energy. He underwent more than 100 million terrifying rebirths and evolutions. His extremely terrifying doomsday cells were constantly reorganizing. His arms were still thick, and held up the Flash's advance. He bared his ferocious, sharp teeth and grinned. His body was extremely painful from the collision. In the process of reorganizing and absorbing kinetic energy, he felt a great pain and brutal pleasure. Badi hugged his arms, and his huge arms broke the speed force field. The lightning seemed to be wailing. His huge hands broke the lightning. It was extremely terrifying. He smiled. His ferocious, sharp teeth were exposed, his eyes were red and violent, and he hugged the Flash to his chest and tightly clamped the Flash's waist. Crack. The Flash's lumbar vertebrae were broken, and the agile lightning kept going crazy, baring its teeth and claws. At this moment, the pain seemed to restore the Flash to normal. His eyes, which were full of lightning, flashed with pain and crazy howls. Ah! The Flash screamed. His waist was tightly held by Badi's huge arms. The crazy blue arc of electricity rolled and spread to Badi's huge arms, and then spread from his arms to his body. The lightning kept hitting Badi's skin and hair, as if a child was struggling in pain. At this moment, suddenly, a colorful crack appeared behind Badi. Master, let go of the Flash. Leave him. We failed. Leave him. You will be brought into the speed force by him. Leave him. Leave him. In an instant, Hera's crazy and terrified voice echoed in Badi's mind. The huge crack was like a huge mouth with ferocious fangs, waiting for the Flash to rush Badi into it. Badi turned his head and saw that his breath was choked. A huge, torn space, colorful inside, was unfolding. The Flash had been pushing Badi back and was about to push Badi in. Damn it. Badi was horrified and angry. The huge impact force was hitting his chest. His chest was constantly healing and reorganizing into an extremely strong skeletal muscle heart. Even if he broke the lumbar spine of the Flash, this impact force still did not stop. How could Badi be willing to let go at this moment? After more than 1.2 million failures, this moment was the best time to kill the Flash. He didn't know if he would have such an opportunity next time. Raw. Badi's eyes were red with anger. He didn't let go. He pushed his arms harder and directly pushed in front of the Flash, and was directly pushed into the crack by him. The next moment, the Flash was directly broken into 2 pieces by Badi. Lightning wailed and flashed, like a child crying and struggling. The Flash was torn into 2 pieces by Badi, and blood flowed in the speed force. He was torn apart by the angry Badi again. His big hand crushed the last awake, terrified head, and blood flew everywhere. The Flash died. In an instant, in the speed force, countless flashes covered Badi's memories. countless Badi condensed into transparent phantoms by time, and Badi like a water body suddenly appeared, all madly rushing towards Badi. More than 100 trillion Badi created by time rushed into the only Badi. The huge pain was torn apart, as if to tear Badi's soul apart and merge into his body, making him float in the speed force. Painful and hideous. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318 God of Evolution. In the Speed Force. It is colorful here. There is no space, no matter, no concept of time. Everything is like snowflakes on the display screen, twisted, and the light with a sense of speed keeps shuttling. It is not peaceful here. Badi's body floats in this space, floating in the desolate and nothingness, like a giant, constantly expanding, and growing wildly. From the initial 7 meters, 70 meters, 700 meters, it keeps surging and expanding wildly. And in the speed force, in the nothingness, colorful light spots, as if every universe in the universe, as if every parallel universe Badi, as if all Badi, have turned into invisible transparent people, all pouring into Badi's body. Badi groaned. His eyes exploded in pain. Every cell in his body was torn, and every transparent person was every Badi, every time Badi. It was the Badi of the last second, and even more, so the Badi of the second before that, and even more, so the Badi of the second before that. The Badi that was reproduced by infinite time, all the past, in an instant, merged into Badi's body. Even a body like Doomsday could not bear this madness. This Badi that came from the infinite reproduction of time merged into his body. If nothing unexpected happened, this influx of countless selves would burst itself with countless past information of different selves. Even the only soul would find it difficult to bear, and could not keep up with the crazy influx of this information. This influx of information was aimed at Badi's soul, trying to burst Badi's soul, to burst it completely, and destroy this unique soul. The Badi of this moment was the Badi of the present, the Badi with only one soul, and there was only one such Badi. In an instant, in the infinite pain, Badi knew that he could not bear it. With this infinite past information entering his body, his soul was simply overloaded, and could not bear it, and was about to burst. The next moment, Badi's hands and feet exploded, and then slowly reorganized. After all, the Doomsday cells could not hold out for long. In just a short period of time, more than 1 billion of himself merged into his soul, and the external information carried by it almost burst his body. He was not completely ignorant of the soul. He learned about his soul from Raven and Sangan's projection, and he had studied his soul in the past. At this moment, the soul in Badi's huge body seemed to be visible, and the glowing light reflected his soul. Shatter! Badi suddenly roared, and his body reorganized again hideously, and his bones stabbed out again. The soul seemed to be like water, turning into countless water drops, completely merging into every Doomsday cell and evolving characteristics. This was a very fast process. In an instant, Badi's soul merged into the body. The soul and the body merged. Every cell was his soul. Every drop of blood was him. Every hair was him. His only soul was shattered and merged into the Doomsday cells, and then evolved into a terrifying body, the only body. The genes in the body collapsed instantly. Doomsday gene. Kryptonian gene. Magical true body gene. In an instant, the collapse twisted Badi into a ball of flesh, twisted and hideous. However, the next moment, this ball of flesh changed into a 5-meter tall humanoid, using the magic true body as the foundation to build Badi's latest and only body. The muscles of the upper body were tied like the roots of an old tree, and the face was as hard as marble. There were extremely hard white bones piercing out of Badi's body, forming a skeletal armor on his chest. The thick arms and muscles were constantly pierced with hideous white bones, reflecting his whole person. White and hideous, with violent and unmatched power, domineeringly destroying all the strength. This is the most powerful body created by nature. This is a body of God. This is the body of the only God. The body of our only God. Domineering, hideous and powerful, with white bone armor, spikes protruding from the joints. Terrifying and powerful. Bati's domineering and stern face was huge and incomparable. He grinned in a ferocious manner. Countless humanoid selves continued to merge into his body, bringing him infinite pain and even producing a kind of tyrannical pleasure of infinite evolution. Huh. Bati grinned and suddenly made a crazy move. He took a breath and immediately formed a hurricane. Countless past selves were sucked into his mouth like a funnel. At this moment, they were madly absorbed by Bati and eaten from his mouth with a grin. Ha 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 ha. At this moment, Bati laughed wildly and ferociously. The Flash could not destroy him. Countless pasts were absorbed by himself, and he became the real one. The universe, the past and the future, the endless universe, the multiple inside and outside. A kind of enlightenment in the heart appeared in Bati's heart. I am the god of evolution. 5-dimensional space. A golden Superman. His whole body radiated light like gold pouring, with a golden S engraved on his chest. He walked in the universe with a silver woman. Suddenly, he looked up, and the dark universe of the 5-dimensional universe seemed to be seen through by his infinite eyes, and there was doubt on his golden face. How could there be a unique existence in the multiverse? His golden face was doubtful and puzzled. Clark, what's wrong? The silver Louie next to him asked curiously. Nothing. Clark shook his head gently, and his brows were furrowed on his golden face. Hell. In the domain of the Three Palaces Lord, on the hideous, terrifying and twisted demon seat, he was originally sitting on a chair, supporting his cheek with his hand, with an indifferent and bored face, listening to his subordinates reporting the plan to create his strongest descendants. Suddenly, he sat up, and the huge body of the demon god seemed to rise up to the sky, and the demon horn seemed to break through the sky and destroy the universe. Damn. It became the only one so soon. His face was very ugly. It was his biggest loss that he could not intervene and enter that multiverse time. New Genesis star. A new god. What kind of god is this? We must contact him. In that multiverse, there is my clone. He must join my formation. Apocalypse. Lava erupted. Darkseid, the ruler of Apocalypse and the overlord of the universe, had cracked skin like rock. He had a terrifying tyranny that cracked the universe. New god. He must be under my command. Otherwise, I don't mind tearing up the agreement between the one god and the multiverse. In the realm of God, this place is vast and boundless, with many pantheons living in it. The birth of the god of evolution alarmed all the ones. The Olympian pantheon, Asgard, and heaven. How is this possible? The multiverse no longer has enough resources to give birth to a one god. The source there has long been plundered, and it is impossible to give birth to a god. He needs to join Olympus. Alaska can give him anything he wants. The Monkey King, go and recruit a new one. The Origin Universe. DC Editorial Department. Bang. Superboy Prime broke through the wall, and the rubble hit the computer screen and glass crazily. His face was crazy, his eyes were red, and he roared ferociously. What have you done? What character have you designed? What do you want to do to my ordinary life? A unique person appears. You. What do you want to do? Do you want to use comics to wipe me out? Superboy Prime's face was crazy, and he grabbed Sigil, a middle-aged employee of the DC editorial department with a terrified face. Sigil was the designer who designed him in the first place. No. We are designing No Justice after Metal is finished. We didn't design the unique person. Sigil said in horror. He was lifted up by Superboy Prime's hand, and his red eyes made him feel death. You better not lie to me. Superboy Prime said in pain with red eyes. Chapter 319. The Spirit of Existence. Kana. Speed Force. A huge body floated horizontally, floating in the infinitely colorful light distorted Speed Force. The body was tall and huge, and the muscles were as solid as the roots of an old tree. There were white bones piercing out of the body, forming spikes from the joints, sharp and cold, and the white bone spots were cold and majestic, forming a bone armor, domineering and magnificent, with infinite power bursting out from the muscles and bones. Bati's face was harder than any diamond, and there were white bones protruding from the jaw of his rock-like cheeks, which looked extremely hideous and violent, with an unparalleled sense of power. He is the god of evolution. Boom. In a forest continent, there were no people or any creatures, just rocks and green forests, dead silent, so quiet that it was terrifying. Badi's huge body fell, and the whole continent was shaking. The ground was impacted from where Badi fell, and the waves rolled outward in circles. The green forest was broken and scattered. Large clouds of dust flew up, muddying the area. In the center of the dust, there was a huge deep pit formed by the impact of the fall, covered by dust. In the dust, there was a tall, majestic, and tyrannical body, stepping out of the dust. It was the tyrannical body of the god of evolution. The sun shone obliquely on this tyrannical body. The tyrannical and terrifying body exuded a black hole-like attraction, twisting the surroundings. Badi stepped out of the dust. He raised his head, and the sun reflected him as arrogant, daring to go against the sky and destroy everything. The bones of his jaw exuded an infinite sense of violence. Speed Force. Is this the place for me to retire? Badi's eyes were as deep as a black hole, grinning, and his mouth was full of sharp teeth that could bite off any planet. He did not feel the energy in the sunlight. With Badi's current body of the god of evolution, he can use any energy and light for his own benefit, not just sunlight. However, this sunlight did not emit the sunlight energy that it should have, and was absorbed by Badi, which only proved that this was a false sun, created by the Speed Force, a pure object for viewing. Badi's knees slightly bent, and the ground instantly exploded, creating a huge pit. Half of the continent was sunken, the forest was destroyed, and the dust was deeply pressed under the huge pit. Badi's huge body had already leaped into the sky, flying up against the windless sky. The blue sky was just the blue sky, without any real meaning. Badi silently calculated the distance in his heart. When it exceeded 17,000 meters, it was as if he had entered a wormhole, and Badi's body returned to a distance of 10,000 meters again. No matter how many times Badi flew, no matter which direction, it would be the same, returning to the starting point of 10,000 meters. The space and time that zigzag back. An invisible prison. Once again, Badi returned to the ground of the continent, and the ground of the continent naturally healed its wounds, a kind of time reshaping, and returned to its original state. Badi walked here again, but after walking for more than 1,000,000 kilometers, it was still a huge continent with no borders, no boundaries, and no end. This is a prison. Speed Force prison. Eternal prison. A prison that you can't get out of no matter what. Badi rubbed his bony jaw with his hand, not caring at all. Well, since he can't run away for the time being, forget it. Badi raised his right hand and turned it over in front of his eyes. The big hand was composed of white bones and keratin, with strong muscles. From the outside, it looked like a hideous white bone demon hand, and every joint seemed powerful and brutal. Badi felt that the spirit of existence was in his right hand, and he had forced it into his right hand. This spirit of existence, that belonged to his own earth, was almost destroyed, and Badi left the last glimmer of life. Badi tore off his right hand, and in just a moment of tearing off his right hand, his right arm naturally began to grow wildly again, with bone growth and keratin growth, and regenerated a demon hand again, with sharp points and terrifying joints. Badi looked at his regenerated big hand, opened and clenched it several times, squeezed the air several times, and did not feel any diaphragm. It was still his big hand. He nodded with satisfaction, and threw the torn right hand on the ground in front of him. The right hand squirmed, and turned into a ball of flesh, mixed with the existence of the spirit of existence, and began to form a living thing with Badi's flesh and blood. In just a moment, a little girl appeared in front of Badi. A head of white hair fell down to the waist, the face was a little chubby, the eyes were blue, and there were a pair of small thick legs. Of course, this kind of small thick legs is normal in the child's childhood, but when he grows up, he will become a pair of beautiful long legs, full of dynamic beauty. The most peculiar thing is that this little girl has a tail, and there is a ball of keratin on the top of the tail, which is harder than diamond, and it keeps gently fluttering. On both sides of the temples of the head, two thick horns protrude from the white hair. The horns are snow white and forked. The upper one is thick and the upper one is smaller and the lower one is smaller. Badi looked at the little girl with a bit of astonishment. In general, this is a child created by himself with the spirit of existence as the foundation and his own flesh and blood as the main force. Strictly speaking, Badi's subconscious mind will affect the appearance of this child. However, Badi could not think that it would be 100% like him. Helplessly, Badi could only give this child a name. From today on, you will be called Kanna. Badi poked Kanna's chubby face with his big sharp fingers, poking her face to one side. Finding that this Kanna inherited his extraordinary physical strength, Badi nodded and was very satisfied. This kind of physical strength can barely withstand the explosion of the earth, and will not be hurt too much if hit by a planet. Not bad. No, I'm the spirit of existence of the earth. Although I was born with your flesh and blood, and you are like my father, the spirit of existence is the spirit of existence. Everything in life cannot be insulted. You can call me Bailing. Kanna said with a serious face and her water blue eyes revealing seriousness. She gave herself a name, had the consciousness of the spirit of existence, and knew what she was. Although she was a newborn, she was not completely a baby. Badi stopped poking Kanna's face. The atmosphere suddenly became very oppressive. Badi's powerful body suddenly became tall and tall, as if the whole sky was pressing down, which was terrifying. Facing Kanna's resistance, Badi was very dissatisfied and frowned. It is not a good sign that a child knows how to resist his father as soon as he is born. Hey, what do you want to do? Kanna's little hand hurriedly pushed Badi's evil demon hand. Her face panicked. Badi reached out and grabbed Kanna's tail, not allowing resistance, and directly caught the little girl. No. Kanna screamed tenderly, and Badi grabbed her tail and smashed her to the ground continuously. There was a huge sound of boom boom boom, and the ground was covered with dust and waves. I'm Kanna. I'm not Bailing anymore. Very good. You are really good. Chapter 320. How to get out of the Speed Force prison. Speed Force. Still in this prison cage of the Eternal, in a vast continent. Badi leisurely walked across several miles with one step. It seemed like walking, but in fact, he used the huge magnetic field and gravitational reaction emitted by his body to move forward. Is it really this direction? Badi frowned and asked. He created the spirit of existence just to obtain a coordinate on his own earth. Kanna is the spirit of existence on his own earth. She has a natural intuitive feeling about the position and direction of the earth, and can sense the direction of the earth at any time. But as Badi kept calculating the time, they had been walking and flying for more than a week. Of course, time here is not calculated in any way. Badi calculated it according to the circulation of his blood. They at least flew out of the solar system by a quarter of the diameter, about 560.8 billion kilometers. Still did not fly out and walk out of this continent. Although this continent has been growing, extending, and growing, infinitely and eternally growing, and becoming a Speed Force prison, it is not to the point where it cannot even close a little distance. Are you still the spirit of my earth? Badi suddenly had another guess. Is this still the spirit of earth? It seems that he has played a game with it. Can it still sense the earth? He was quite skeptical. Do you doubt me? Kanna sat on Badi's shoulder, furious. She lowered her head angrily and used her horns to push Badi's neck. The force was enough to penetrate the Asian continental plate. Cheer. The horn seemed to hit a super strong metal plate, rubbing and making an unpleasant sound. The sound of teeth aching made Kanna's body goosebumps. The wave-like touch made her hair stand up and her heart numb. Badi just felt like a normal person when a mosquito used its tentacles to scratch his skin, giving him an itchy feeling. Kanna, scratch my neck, it's a little itchy. Badi did not turn his head back and continued to walk. Kanna's chubby face sank, holding her breath and feeling uncomfortable. I'm tickling you. She stood up, raised her chubby legs, and instantly turned into a shadowless kick. She kicked continuously with sonic booms. Her chubby legs were full of phantoms, and she slammed towards Badi's neck. Her chubby face was gritting her teeth. I'm tickling you. Not bad. That's the strength. Badi was very satisfied and praised. Use more strength. Harder. I won't. Kanna held Badi's neck angrily and stopped. Badi told her to go east, but she wanted to go west. Suddenly, Kanna was stunned for a moment, turned her head, and looked behind Badi. Her water blue eyes seemed to see through the universe and penetrate the space deeply. Badi was feeling that it was a pity that Kanna's strength was still a little weak, otherwise it would be more comfortable. No need to move forward. Just now, I felt that the earth of our universe was behind us. Kanna patted Badi's neck and said, this is the conversion and replacement of space and time. Before we reach the edge of the speed force, this eternal continent will always be like this. We can't get out of it. Kana sat on Bati's shoulders again, holding him steady. The kinetic impact caused by Bati's sudden stop almost sent her small body flying. Bati's body suddenly stopped, and beside him was like a hurricane that stopped suddenly. The huge airflow was flying forward, lifting the grass in the forest, and causing a huge destructive hurricane. So, you really intend to imprison me here forever? Bati rubbed his white bone jaw with his hand, which felt very good. Is the speed force so powerful? Can you have the confidence to imprison me? Bati rubbed the bones of his jaw in confusion, or thinker. In his current body, he is even afraid of himself when he goes crazy. Don't force me. What will happen if I stay in the speed force forever? The speed force is a conceptual creation, probably an unconscious existence. It is wrapped in a wall of the multiverse. This wall prevents the unique person outside the multiverse from entering. That's why Sangang entered as a projection, and other unique people can only enter as projections. You are the only one born in the multiverse, making this unconscious existence feel dangerous and threatening the existence of the multiverse. Naturally, the speed force will feel the crisis and create the speed force prison, which will trap you here infinitely. We can't get out. Kana spread her legs and sat on Bati's shoulders. There's no hope. We have no hope. We can only be trapped here and starve to death. Kana sang dejectedly. Even if she could sense the location of the earth, there was nothing she could do. She couldn't get out of the speed force that could replace space and time at any time. Hearing Kana's words, Bati raised his eyebrows and had a flash of inspiration. We stay in this eternal prison for an infinite number of years. What will happen next? What will happen? We will starve to death. Cannibalism will happen. Kana is destined to become food in the mouth of a beast like you. You have wronged me, the soul of existence. Kana lay on Bati's shoulder. She could almost see the future. She saw that in the future, Bati would eat herself because she was too hungry. This was very desperate and depressing. Bati looked at the earth and rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. Kana was stunned. You don't want to eat dirt. No, eat chocolate. After speaking, Bati's eyes flashed with dark rays. The chocolate rays were imprinted in his soul. Now it has become Bati's exclusive ability. It is simply a gifted existence, and it is even more powerful than before. It completely distorts the composition of all material energy and turns it into chocolate. A large piece of land, under Bati's dark rays, turned into black, and turned into chocolate land. Bati dug out a large piece. It was very sweet. He bit it with his sharp teeth. It flowed smoothly to his stomach, and was digested instantly. He felt unexpectedly good. Bati's eyes lit up and he smiled. He could actually feel that he had become a little stronger after eating chocolate, although this was very small, almost like an illusion that could not be felt. But Bati believed that he was not wrong. Then, Bati scooped up big mouthfuls of chocolate and ate them into his mouth. During the process, Bati was not very satisfied, so he transformed himself to the largest size again, turning almost half of the continent into chocolate and eating it in big mouthfuls. Kana's blue eyes widened in shock. She had never seen anyone eat dirt so happily, with bright eyes and a smile. First of all, I don't eat dirt. Kana hadn't finished her words when Bati stuffed a mouthful of chocolate dirt into her. She felt so wronged that she wanted to cry, but under the authority of Bati, the tyrant, she could only hold back tears, puff up her lips, and chew, chew, chew. As she chewed, unexpectedly, a fragrance emanated from her mouth, which was super delicious. Old Bay, give me more. Huh. Bati threw a large piece of rock chocolate to Kana. She held the huge chocolate rock in her small hands and began to chew it. Haha, sooner or later, we will eat up the speed force and become extremely powerful. Eat up the speed force. Kana's eyes lit up. She understood Bati's plan. Since the speed force would not let them go out, then they would eat up the speed force and destroy the speed force. Anyway, there are countless and unlimited things transformed by the speed force here. Even if it is the speed force, Bati can eat it and turn it into his own food. Bati will only become more and more powerful. Eat up the speed force and eat the speed force to death. Kana bit the chocolate rock sweetly and contributed to eating up the speed force. Chapter 321, Run, You Released the Devil. Earth. The first continent, the original location of Detroit. Many strange objects from Earth and other planets are secretly stored here. There are many magical objects that cannot be detected, understood, and all functions are not understood. They are all placed here separately. The security settings here can be regarded as top-level settings. Then, a piercing alarm sounded in the object building and in the smooth surface of the experimental building. The first alarm that had never been heard before suddenly sounded. A speedster is invading. He vibrated through the wall. According to the data, the contrast between the light and shadow arcs, the phantom arcs that intersect red and yellow, is most likely the Flash in the record. This is impossible. The Flash's data has been deleted by the Hera terminal, which means that the Flash will not be our enemy. He has disappeared and is dead. No matter what, he is a speedster and wants to steal your majesty's items. Where is he now? F-level passage. Entering the D-level item storage room, he is searching for something. This speedster has a purpose. Entering C-level, the speed is very fast. He has been vibrating through. Turn on the protective shield to stop his actions. Activate the speed limitation armored biological warrior. Kill him. No, we are too slow. The time it takes to start up is enough for him to run away. He entered the B-level item storage room, and he stopped in the B-level item storage room. The energy shield is activated. We trapped him. No. He disappeared. Wormhole travel? Space shuttle? What did we lose? B-level protected items. Pandora's box. Damn it, is the protection of the B-level item still too weak? If he enters the A-level area, he won't even be able to cross the wormhole, and he will definitely die. Report to the superiors, a speedster has stolen a B-level protection item, and request a stronger protection. The speedster-like armored biological warriors are too slow to start up, and can't deal with the speedster. Yes. Highway 6. This place has been restored to its original state. The road that was originally destroyed by the battle between Badi and the Flash has been repaved with asphalt. At one end of the road, there is a small base campsite of nearly 10 kilometers, which has been waiting here, waiting for Badi to come back. The weather is hot. In the scorching sun, the asphalt road is scorched by the heat, emitting a smell of burnt asphalt. The air is slightly distorted and burned by the heat. The desolate weeds on both sides are shaking in the scorching sun, and the yellow desert sand and gobi are emitting a hot breath. In the distance of the road, a yellow and red after image flashed a yellow arc, running straight from the far end of Highway 6 where the air was distorted. The Phantom ran to the section of the road where Badi and the Flash disappeared, and stopped. The phantoms behind him converged on him like a train. This is not the Flash, or rather, he is the Flash, but not Barry Allen. He was wearing a red tights with golden lines in many places, golden gloves on both hands, a silver hood, and a pair of goggles. His face looked frivolous and evil. What a beautiful world. Johnny Quick's mouth drew a grim smile, his figure hidden in a corner, looking at the camp not far away, waiting for the return of the emperor of this world, Bamulodi. For Johnny Quick, this world is simply a perfect existence. Their emperor Bamulodi is missing. And he came from that destroyed world, accidentally crossed over from a run, and came to this unified world. Moreover, there are also technological creations from their world here, opening the door to the two universes, Pandora's box. This is simply God's will, asking them to conquer this world. As long as the top leaders of this world are killed, and this complete world is taken over, you can enjoy everything of the supreme ruler again. Rights, honor, status, everything, safety, no worries. Occupy this world and escape from that world. When Johnny Quick thought of his original world being destroyed by that terrifying existence, and turned into food, his face sank from excitement. The sun shone obliquely on his face, and it looked very gloomy. Fortunately, I came here through. There is Pandora's box here. Johnny Quick licked the corner of his mouth. His heart trembled slightly, with fear and relief, as well as the current excitement. He held Pandora's box in his hand, and his eyes exuded excitement. Pandora's box was like a golden skull, shining with a terrifying sense of fear under the sunlight. Johnny Quick's eyes swept across the camp base not far away with evil eyes, and carefully came to the road where Badi and Flash disappeared. This is the weakest space location on the entire Earth. which is most suitable for opening Pandora's box, indicating that his accomplices will come and wipe out this world. Open it, the door connecting the two universes, Pandora's box. Johnny Quick smiled grimly, his body trembling slightly, and he was so excited that he opened Pandora's box and placed it on Highway 6. The sunlight shone on Pandora's box in a distorted way. Pandora's box began to tremble on the asphalt road surface. The Pandora's box with a golden skull began to open, emitting a disturbing magnetic field reaction. The air was further twisted into a vortex, and then the vortex tore apart, as if a vertical eye opened. Pang, a tearing sound, like tearing apart a rag, tearing apart the air, tearing apart the space. A crack tore apart vertically in the scorching sunlight and distorted air, like a vertical eye of space opened, with colorful colors and colorful light effects flowing inside. Success. Johnny Quick opened his eyes, bit his teeth tightly and excitedly, and his clenched fists were shaking. It worked, and he could escape from that terrifying existence. They can once again rule this planet, become the supreme ruler, do whatever they want, do whatever they want. Thinking of the future, everything on this planet will be occupied by him. Johnny Quick couldn't help but tremble with excitement, and his heart was burning with passion. Finally, I will regain the supreme ruler, the supreme position. This world, it belongs to the syndicate. At this time, a tall, white jade, naked tall body walked out from the crack. A little girl with white hair and horns on her head leaned on the shoulder of the body, slapping the man's chest non-stop. I don't know if it was because of his shoulder that she felt uncomfortable in her stomach, or because she was too full. The little girl burped for a long time, and then spoke excitedly, dancing with joy. Old Bay, tighten the magnetic field a little. Tighten your paws. Don't leak the magnetic field. Your momentum will crush the continent and form a black hole. Hold your butt tight. Be careful not to fart and explode my earth. Shut up, I know. The man and the little girl walked out of the crack leisurely. Johnny Quick's excited face stopped, looking at this white jade, tall, naked man, and the little girl hanging on his shoulders. He couldn't help but petrified. Who the hell are you? Chapter 320. Takana cried loudly, my earth. Is this earth? Badi looked around at the surroundings. The desolate Gobi Desert was on both sides of the road. The breeze blew up the yellow sand, which rolled into a small tornado and dissipated. The heat from the sun was transferred into Badi's body, reflecting this white jade tall and infinite body. The familiar feeling of the past, the breeze of the air from the earth, reappeared in his mind, making Badi sigh. He and Kana rate up the continent created by the Speed Force in the Speed Force. It was unknown how long it had been. In the end, the entire Speed Force continent was eaten up by Badi. Then the Speed Force created a prison of nothingness again with the concept of nothingness, time and space. Of course, the so-called nothingness is also based on something to build a prison of nothingness. This thing is very nothingness. It was found and noticed by Badi, and was eaten up by Badi. The Speed Force is a conceptual creation without a specific consciousness, but facing this unreasonable, hard-eating, and more evolved god, it really dared not trap Badi. Because according to this situation, Badi will eventually eat up all the Speed Force, and then the Speed Force field that wraps the multiverse will completely collapse. The multiverse will collide and be destroyed, and the time and space of all the multiverses will be reversed, which will completely destroy all the multiverses. Obviously, letting Badi out will harm a universe, and cause the collapse of countless multiverses. Even if the Speed Force has no specific consciousness, it can feel that it cannot trap Badi, and will lead to more devastating consequences. Therefore, it chooses to tear a crack and quickly let Badi go. Eating all day long, the Speed Force can't hold on. For a while, Badi was really touched inside. Finally, with his strong willpower, he ate a bloody way out of the Speed Force. It was really sighing. Badi's eyes faced the sun, and his eyes revealed emotion. It was really an unforgettable experience of being trapped in the Speed Force. Kana's belly was on his shoulder, her white hands excitedly patting Badi's chest, and she said excitedly, "It's my earth, I feel it." Kana's hands and feet were dancing, her face was excited, and the familiar connection surged into her heart again, connecting every one of her spirits. She was the spirit of the existence of the earth and even the universe, and she and Badi would rise and fall together. She could feel that this was their Earth. Johnny Quick looked at Bati's perfect white jade body. His body and muscle lines were strong and beautiful, as perfect as a work of art sculpture. His face was tough and charming, and under the sunlight, he was just like a god. His eyes couldn't help but flash with jealousy, because what he saw seemed to be a creation of gods, as perfect as gods, making people want to touch and look up to it from the bottom of their hearts. This kind of external impact made his heart jealous and twisted. Your Earth. The Earth is mine now. Johnny Quick's face was cold, his chin slightly raised, looking proudly at Bati, and snorted coldly. He already considered the Earth as his own. This was the Syndicate's next territory, so how could he easily let two lucky people who had traveled through time and space occupy it? Bati raised his eyebrows. His face looked a little ugly. How long had he stayed in the Speed Force? Even his own Earth was occupied? Who was so bold? Connor looked at Johnny Quick strangely, and then quickly connected to all the life on Earth, and learned some information from the feedback of all the life on Earth. Old Bay, it's okay. We have only been away for about 2 years. Nothing on Earth has changed. On the contrary, there are 20 million more babies than before. Feeling the information of the increase of 20 million new young lives, Connor said with a happy face. She is the spirit of existence, the ultimate of life, and has a natural love for life. Then what's the matter with this thing? It wants to occupy my Earth in front of me? Hearing Connor say that it was okay, Bati felt a little relieved. He didn't want any war to happen on his base, Earth, and it would be a pity to damage everything on Earth. The space on Earth is weak in many places. It should be caused by the Flash traveling back and forth. He is very likely from another world. Kanna thought for a while and said. She felt that the space on Earth was weak and full of holes. It was not surprising that people from other parallel universes traveled here. What's more, she didn't feel the breath of the local universe on this speedster. Kanna was right. Johnny Quick came to this world by accident, but this made Johnny Quick even more unhappy. His face was gloomy and he sneered. You two want to snatch this world from me? In an instant, Johnny Quick flashed a phantom, and yellow arcs flowed on his body. He was bathed in the yellow electric light with a grim smile. Boom boom boom. Bati stood there without any reaction. A strong wind suddenly blew up around him. Johnny Quick's figure flashed, and he transformed into countless phantoms, along with yellow arcs, around Bati and rolled up a strong wind. The dust outside the highway was gradually rolled up, and seeped into the strong wind. Suddenly, yellow thunder flashed and roared. The wind was swirling. The yellow sand was all over the sky, vast, and the sky was full of dust. Ha 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 ha. In the next second, a sonic boom was exploded in the yellow sand, blasting out a clean space, and the sand and dust rolled away like waves. Johnny Quick's red figure appeared in front of Bati again. What do you use to snatch this Earth from me? You can't see my figure, touch me, or feel me. I'm your invincible ruler. I have superhuman speed. He grinned, arrogant, jealous, and happy to see Bati shivering in the wind and sand, standing stiffly, unable to deal with himself. The wind and sand kept swirling, covering Bati's body, making his body stained with dust, grey, and looked very embarrassed, which made Johnny Quick smile cheerfully. Kanna just gasped. She immediately put her white little hands on Bati's chest, clumsily touching his chest, and soothing his chest up and down. She said nervously, don't get excited, Leo Bay. Be careful to control your magnetic field and momentum. Don't get excited. Don't get excited. This idiot. We'll send someone to kill him later. Don't get excited. Be careful not to burst out your momentum, causing the birth of a singularity force field, and destroying the Earth. Kanna was so scared that she comforted Bati, fearing that Bati would accidentally get excited and release his body force field reaction, causing a singularity vortex, the birth of a black hole, and the destruction of the Earth. I have never seen such a fool without eyesight, actually provoking a unique god in person. I know. Bati's face was a little dissatisfied, but considering that he was too powerful, he was still not used to taking action on Earth. His eyes were cold, and his white jade-like body was stained with sand and dust, making it dusty, like a porcelain antique covered with sand and dust. I'll leave this idiot to you. Bati frowned, looked at his body, and said, if he wasn't so powerful that he was afraid of destroying the Earth with one move, this speedster who dared to challenge him would have been slapped to death by him. Being strong is also a kind of difficulty. Hearing Badi say to leave it to him, Kanna's heart was relieved for a moment. Fortunately, Badi had a good temper. Destroy the earth. Ha 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 ha. Johnny Quick laughed with his belly in his arms. Badi didn't dare to make a move, and Kanna was a little girl. He had already regarded Kanna as a non-threatening existence. At least compared to his speed, they had no way to deal with him. He laughed wildly, yellow arcs of electricity wrapped around his body, his figure flashed, and he ran to Badi. Seeing Badi's perfect body and appearance covered by the dust, he opened his hands and grinned. You should kneel down and pray for the ruler's mercy on you. He was too arrogant, his eyes were filled with cruel contempt and sadism, and he wanted to destroy this body that made him so jealous, and destroy the man in front of him. Even if it was their first meeting, and there was no hatred, it did not stop him from wanting to destroy a person. He was in front of Badi, close at hand, sneering and contempt, without fear. The speed force enveloped his body. As long as Badi made a move, in his eyes, he would be as slow as a turtle, and there was no way to hurt him. He had enough confidence, and the speed force gave him too many reflexes beyond ordinary people. This guy is looking for death. Kanna was shocked. Soon, Johnny Quick disappeared. Badi had no expression on his face, and when he slapped a fly with his right hand, Johnny Quick's happy and grim face was distorted. Without any reaction, his body collapsed from the atomic level. The upper body was torn apart and disappeared, and the lower body turned into a pool of blood, splashing on the asphalt road. Then, on the left side of Highway 6, a huge tearing airwave hit, and the atmosphere was torn apart. From space, one could only see a strong shock wave that completely tore the atmosphere and clouds apart. A huge fan-shaped atmosphere was destroyed, the clouds disappeared, and a deep crack appeared. A crack over 100,000 kilometers long appeared. The crack was so deep that one could not see the bottom. It was extremely terrifying. The earth was like a watermelon that had been cut. Kanna cried out loudly, "My earth." Chapter 323 2 Years of Crisis. Badi's movements froze. As Kanna cried loudly, he felt helpless. He actually just wanted to slap the speedster in front of him into the atmosphere, fly into space, and let him travel in space. However, he didn't expect that the earth would be like a watermelon that was cut with a knife, with a crack, as long as 100,000 miles. Kanna cried heartbrokenly, sobbing continuously, and couldn't stop crying. No one loved the earth more than her. The earth cracked so much that she was heartbroken. In the sunlight, the dust had been completely scattered. Badi's movements froze. On the surface of the dust on his white jade-like body, the magnetic field began to twist and bend. Unconsciously, his body was like a supergravitational field, twisting and destroying all the space and matter around him. He slowly retracted his right hand, very slowly. His body was too powerful, and the magnetic field it emitted was difficult to control. Almost thousands of meters around him were twisted, and the light was twisting like a ripple vortex. Badi tried his best to control it to avoid really twisting his own gravitational field and forming a singularity. Don't cry. Crying makes me upset. If I can't control myself, the earth will suffer even more. Badi glanced at Kanna, who was leaning on his shoulder, and tears as big as beans dripped from his chest. His every move now has infinite power and huge magnetic field gravity reaction. If he is not careful, destroying the earth is really no joke. Swallow. Kanna's crying face stopped, tears swirled in her eyes, and she closed her mouth tightly, not daring to cry out. She knew that Badi was not joking. She wiped her tears with a grieved face, wiped the tears on Badi's body, and stopped crying. In the camp next to Highway 6, some soldiers have already noticed the problem. Several Kryptonians came here and saw Badi. They hurriedly wanted to come forward to kowtow to Badi, but Badi stopped them and asked them to kowtow outside the range of 2,000 meters. The earth cracked a 100,000 kilometer crack. Hera, as the terminal of the earth, had already noticed it and saw Badi's figure using satellites. Hera, Raven, Pamela, Jenny and other women soon flew directly from the direction of Metropolis. Stop. Badi hurriedly stopped Jenny from coming forward. As a mortal, Jenny could easily be crushed by his momentum if she was not careful. He could only stop them and let them reunite with him at a distance of 2,000 meters. Reuniting at a distance of 2,000 meters, seeing many of his women again was helpless enough. Badi was even a little excited because of seeing the women again, causing the surroundings to become more distorted, almost forming a gravitational field distortion, which was terrifying and frightening. What was going on? Did Badi become a black hole-like existence? Can't get close. Very helpless. Jenny picked up the telescope, met Badi, and looked at Badi worriedly. Raven, Hera, I need you to make a device to isolate the magnetic field and gravity, otherwise, it will be difficult for me to hug you. Okay, let's collect data now. The armor I'm making can be converted into a magical technology to isolate the magnetic field and gravity reaction. Hera and Raven agreed one by one and began to mobilize reconnaissance and inspection satellites, began to scan and inspect, and began to collect various powerful divine objects and magical items to prepare to build an isolation device for Badi. During the inspection, Badi pointed to the Pandora's box underground and asked, "What's going on? What happened on Earth in the past 2 years?" Badi didn't remember that the place where the items were protected would allow a speedster to enter so easily and get the B-level item, Pandora's box. Hera, who came here, was little Hera. Now 2 years have passed, she has grown a little taller and looks like a girl. She wears hot pants and a vest, and her fair skin is exposed. She looks enthusiastic and energetic. She is 2 kilometers away, talking to Badi. It's hard to explain. Now that the master is back, everything is not a problem. Let's serve some fruits, put up the parasol, bring the lounge chairs, and talk slowly. So, under the command of little Hera, they ordered their men to put up the parasols, bring the lounge chairs, colorful drinks and fruits, and made it look like they were enjoying the cool air on the Hawaiian beach. They just lay comfortably on the lounge chairs, drank drinks, and talked with Badi, who was exposed to the sun. Little Hera has always been unscrupulous. Knowing that Badi would not mind such things, she enjoyed a sip of watermelon juice. Kana looked at the many fresh fruits from a distance and felt that the environment and food on the other side were better, so she quickly climbed down from Badi. With Badi's unpleasant consent, she ran over with her 2 fat short legs. Before she had time to eat a bite of fresh fruit, she was surrounded by Raven and Jenny and asked questions. While Kana was eating fruit and talking about the bloody history with Badi, she ate dirt. Little Hera also slowly told what happened in the past 2 years. First, Hal's body was occupied by the Parallax monster and turned into the Parallax demon. He came to Earth and wanted to seek revenge on Batista with his last obsession. Then Hera used the 17 load-bearing pillars that controlled the Earth and the magic of the Raven to trap him in Seaside City. Now in Seaside City, all creatures and humans have been polluted by the Parallax demon and become his minions. There are 100,000 Kryptonian soldiers stationed outside the city, ready to respond at any time. In addition, Jenny has won the favor of the Purple Lantern of Love. In the past 2 years, she has been helping the humans in Seaside City to return to normal, get rid of the fear of the Parallax demon, and make these humans become warriors of love, and they are extremely loyal. Batista took a look at Jenny's hand. 2 rings, 1 silver and 1 purple. Jenny noticed Batista's sight and raised her hand to shake the ring on her hand. After that, Brainiac and Mongo drove the war world. Brainiac once fought against Hera Terminal. Both were emotional creations born from artificial intelligence, so it was difficult to tell the winner. In the end, Brainiac conquered Mars and transformed it. He was eyeing the Earth and had not taken any action for 2 years, which was worrying. And Hera Terminal had to stay in the Earth base camp and trap the Parallax demon, and it was impossible for it to take the initiative to attack and eliminate Brainiac. Today, Brainiac is still on Mars, and it is unknown what he is transforming. Of course, now that Badi is back, there is no need to worry about all this. In addition, Mongo drove the war world, which is a war fortress arena as big as a planet. He accidentally came to the Earth through a space crack, and he wanted to take the Earth for himself and let the Earth entertain him. Today, General Lot is on the Diamond Moon, and the war worlds of the armies and Mongo are fighting fiercely. Finally, the biggest trouble is that OA has sent Green Lanterns to track the Parallax demon, and they came to Earth to ask Hera for a Bunsu's Green Lantern ring. This is Badi's item. How could Hera hand it over? So she fought with the Green Lantern who came. Not long ago, the Guardians of the Universe, the little blue men, appeared and claimed that the Earth could not become like this. They wanted to restore the order of the Earth, and were ready to lead the Green Lantern Corps to attack the Earth, intending to restore the Earth to its previous appearance. The fact that the center of the universe was dominated by one person obviously stimulated the hearts of the Guardians of the Universe. It is expected that they will directly confront the Green Lantern Corps soon. Our crisis is probably like this. We have withdrawn too much technology and manpower to fight, and it is difficult to guard against these little mice. Little Hera was wearing hot pants, lying leisurely on a lounge chair, wearing big sunglasses, her white and slender legs crossed, her toes were naughty, and kept bending and jumping. She drank a sip of durian, mango, watermelon, pineapple, apple and orange mixed juice, and said, Chapter 324 I come, I conquer. What kind of crisis is this? A bunch of snakes, insects, rats and ants dare to mess with my Earth? Under the scorching sun, the light was distorted, and the desolate Highway 6 was terrifying. On the left was a crack that stretched for 100,000 kilometers, and it was bottomless. Badi stood there, his majestic body exuding endless tyranny. He stood in the middle of the vast and desolate Highway 6, with a sneer on his face. If he was not careful, the huge and terrifying magnetic field gravity would be distorted, and it would spread for hundreds of meters and twist to the feet of little Hera. Pa 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 pa. The continuous sound of glass shattering sounded, and was affected by the distortion of Badi's gravity. The cups in the hands of little Hera and the girls were broken, and the mixed juice flowed all over them, causing little Hera to roll her eyes helplessly. Badi restrained his murderous intention, maintained a calm state, and quickly controlled himself to restrain his body and control the magnetic field of his body. His strength increased too fast, so fast that he couldn't control his body for a while. The magnetic field twisted the light and then shrank back like a tide towards Badi, shrinking to about 2 kilometers. Kana, go and get rid of the parallax demon, Badi ordered. Kana is the spirit of existence, the so-called white light beast, much more advanced than that kind of existence. White light is the first light of creation, and it is essentially a combination of all the colors of the emotional spectrum. Therefore, the user of the white light ring can generate and use the power of any color of light on the emotional spectrum. The power Kana possesses is even stronger than Badi at the beginning, especially when facing various light rings. It is simply crushing. The white light ring can also allow the user to access the rings of any member of the light group and observe them. Kana's existence naturally restrains other light rings and beasts, as well as all light beasts of the emotional spectrum, especially the Black Death Emperor, which is a one-hit kill. Dealing with the parallax demon is not a problem at all. Kana was sitting on Jenna's lap, pressing against Jenna's chest, eating watermelon happily. When she heard Badi's order, she looked a little dissatisfied on her chubby face. She adjusted her sitting position shyly, and the white hair on her head rubbed against Jenny's chest. Jenny loved Badi's child very much. She held Kana and pressed her chin against her head, sniffing her white hair. She could feel Badi's breath a little and felt very comfortable. I want to help her, Kana said crisply, and her hands quickly swept through the grapes, apples, and durians on the table next to her. Regardless of whether they were open or not, she stuffed them into her mouth, puffed up her cheeks, and chewed like a hamster. Before the action, she had to eat more and eat more. She had never eaten anything here. The fruits and juices were delicious, and she was reluctant to leave. Okay, there are 100,000 Krypton Legion soldiers outside the seaside city. You can send them at your disposal. Badi nodded. No problem. If he wants people, the whole world is his people. No, I'll just take one person with me. Kana clapped her hands and smiled happily. Suddenly, her face changed, her eyes flashed with shock, disbelief, and discomfort. Her cheeks bulged, and she couldn't help but feel nauseous. She vomited out the fruits she had eaten, and said in discomfort and horror, I seem to have eaten shit. Jenny couldn't help but smile, took a glass of pear juice from the side, handed it to Kana, and said with a smile, you just ate an unshelled durian. Kana's mouth was dry from vomiting, but she still felt as uncomfortable as if she had eaten shit. Her face changed, and she felt extremely uncomfortable. She took the pear juice from Jenna's hand and drank nearly 3 pounds of apple juice before she felt that the taste in her mouth had dissipated a little. She looked at the pile of hedgehog-like durians next to her, which changed color slightly. A white light shone brightly on her little hand. She condensed a white light ring and handed it to Jenny. "Jenny, put it on. Let's go." She really didn't want to see durians anymore. Seeing them made her feel like eating. That kind of thing made her feel sick just thinking about it. Facing the white light ring handed over, Jenny was stunned for a moment. Her eyes were confused. When she came back to her senses, she looked at the purple light ring on her hand, and then looked at the white light ring, and felt a familiar feeling. Seeing that Jenny didn't react, Connor's face, which was ugly because of the durian, was forced to return to a serious expression. She closed her mouth, which had been open for air, and said seriously, "Jenny of the Earth, destiny has been waiting for a long time." Connor said with a serious expression, and couldn't hold it back anymore, and opened her mouth again to breathe. The smell was the same, whether she closed her mouth or not. Jenny subconsciously put on the white light ring, and a kind of enlightenment rose in her heart, just like when she put on the purple light ring. She stretched out her fingers and swore, "The brightest day will eventually have light, cleansing the soul will be wrong. Darkness descends and eyes look up, the new day descends with infinite light." The moment the oath was finished, white light shone brightly, and Jenny was already wearing the white tights of the white light, outlining her plump figure with enchanting curves. Connor opened her mouth to breathe, nodded, and was very satisfied with the person she chose. Here, only Jenny had such a pure mind, which matched the white light ring. Then, Connor climbed onto Jenna's back, bid farewell to Badi and many others, and the two of them flew up into the sky with white light, flying towards the seaside city. "Transfer your 100,000 Kryptonian warriors, don't hinder me." The white light faded away, leaving Connor's confident voice. After Connor and Jenny left the seaside city, Little Hera used the underground research room of the Emperor building to create a diamond throne with a density that was about 10 times higher than diamond, which could support the distorted magnetic field reaction of Badi's convergence, and sent it directly to Badi, letting Badi sit first. Badi calmly sat on the crystal clear throne created by Little Hera. He raised his head and looked at the sky. Above the blue sky, there was the moon and another planet-sized war world, which was fighting with the army led by General Otto on the Diamond Moon. Should he use thermal vision to shoot and kill this guy? Badi pondered. In the end, he gave up the idea of using thermal vision, because that would definitely leak energy and cause a huge pit on the earth again. By then, I'm afraid Connor would roll on the ground and cry. Badi rubbed his chin and inadvertently saw Pandora's box on the ground from the corner of his eye, and he couldn't help but wake up. Yes, how could he forget a group of Justice League with anxious IQs? Obviously, the speedster before was Johnny Quick from Earth 3 in the comics, who wanted to use Pandora's box to open the channel connecting the parallel world and let the Justice League come over. Can't he go to that world and release his power at will? Badi grinned and thought of something fun. Not long after, 100,000 Kryptonian warriors stationed in the coastal city were summoned back by Badi. They flew back from the sky like a swarm of bees. After the 100,000 Kryptonian warriors met Badi, prepare for battle. Badi sat on the throne and waved his hand to give orders. Under the command of their respective leaders, 100,000 Kryptonian warriors began to spread in the sky, densely occupying every part of the sky. Under the scorching sun, there was a tense atmosphere here, like the calm after a storm. Only Badi sat on the throne, with malicious teasing in his eyes. Then, Badi ordered people to open Pandora's box. Pong, a crack opened vertically like the eye of space. It was dark inside, and several tall figures appeared inside, like huge figures appearing in the abyss, with cloaks fluttering, bringing a strong momentum, sweeping out. Johnny finally succeeded. Ha ha ha. I conquer. The leader, Superba, laughed wildly, with bold words surging in his chest, and stepped out of the crack with several people behind him. Chapter 325 Crime Syndicate. Superman is very weak, not only in spirit, but also in body, with the added pain of fear. Here, we first need to talk about the members and abilities of the Crime Syndicate from Earth 3. The members of the Crime Syndicate are all isomorphs of the members of the Justice League in the main world, but their personalities are all opposite to those of the Justice League, and their wisdom is very frustrating. Superman. Corresponding character, Superman. On Earth 3, Krypton was destroyed by the Anti-Monitor. He is a survivor of the L clan who worship power, and is also the last survivor of Krypton. He gains power by swallowing kryptonite, and the yellow sun will eliminate his power and make him suffer. His personality is cold and ruthless. He advocates that the strong survive, but he bullies the weak and fears the strong, and he is extremely cowardly. It is no wonder why he can laugh wildly when he walks out of the crack and say such bold words as I come, I conquer. In fact, he was forced into a desperate situation by the Anti-Monitor and wanted to escape to this world, but he still behaved very heroically. The moment he stepped out of the crack, the sun shone on him, and the stinging feeling like every needle piercing the flesh began to spread from his body. If he was stung by the sun, it would not be a big deal. At most he would gradually become weak, and there would still be enough time for him to walk to the building to avoid the sun. However, more than 100,000 Kryptonian warriors, densely packed in space, with red eyes, looked like they were ready to launch heat rays. The murderous atmosphere was like the murderous aura of a pack of wolves surrounding a poor sheep, which was terrifying and gave people goosebumps. In addition, Badi sat calmly on the diamond throne, and the sun shone with a magnificent brilliance, and the figure of Badi on the throne was dimly reflected as a majestic outline, as if a huge demon hidden under the magnificent light. Its momentum twisted the air, bent the space, and shocked the world. Swallow. In an instant, they escaped from the tiger's den and fell into the mouth of the brutal Tyrannosaurus. Superman's face was extremely ugly and distorted. He didn't have the heroic look he had just now. Even his body was slightly hunched. He didn't dare to show himself too arrogant. Beside him, coming out with him was Night Owl, the Batman of Earth 3. He was wearing equipment similar to Batman's, and his face mask was shaped like an owl, Night Owl, which was very vivid. In fact, he was the elder brother of Bruce Wayne of Earth 3, whose original name was Thomas Wayne Jr. When he was young, he witnessed the evil of Gotham City and the corruption of his parents. Later, he conspired with the butler Alfred to kill his parents, and also accidentally killed his beloved brother Bruce. He became Night Owl, and ruled Gotham with power in exchange for order. Night Owl is the only representative of intelligence in the crime syndicate team. He has a cold personality, a firm will, and a calm mind. But at this moment, even if he was calm, facing the enemy who had been premeditated and ambushed by 100,000 Star Warriors, he couldn't help but sweat under the black battle suit of Kara armor. He forced himself to stay calm and stepped on the spot. He glanced back slightly among the thousands of troops and found that the crack had closed when they walked out, and his heart sank. On the other side of the superhero, there was a woman wearing a black Amazon-style alternative tights with a black cape-style evening dress. She was a charming and sexy woman. She was the Queen of Super, Wonder Woman of Earth 3, who had a lasso of submission. She was insidious and cruel, and would do anything to leave the offspring of the strongest. In the comics, she plotted with the sperm of Superhero and Night Owl, and the real father of the child in her belly was Alexander Luthor, that is, Shazam of Earth 3. It can only be described as a mess in your circle. Seeing this situation, the mature face of the Super Queen changed color, and she looked at Badi sitting on the diamond throne. The sun shone down, radiating magnificent colors, and infiltrating Badi's figure into the brilliance, with a unique shadow effect, highlighting Badi's unusual grandeur and majesty. Seeing this situation, the Super Queen had subconsciously planned to surrender, and planned how to seduce Badi in an insidious way, leaving behind such a powerful man's offspring. The latter point is the Sea King and Deathstorm. The Sea King had a rebellious face, a gloomy face, holding the trident, his eyes flashing with arrogance, scanning the 100,000 Kryptonian warriors, and finally looked at the diamond throne and Badi, revealing a strong contemptuous look. That look seemed to say, dare to fight alone. He is the Sea King of Earth 3. In the comics, he is a tragic character. He died when he crossed the world, and only his name was used as a soy source. Now he escaped from the dead in advance and came to Badi. Deathstorm, Firestorm of Earth 3, Martin Stein, a crazy physiologist who doesn't care about ethics, has been conducting illegal human experiments. He merged with the body of Roddy Raymond to become Deathstorm, who has the ability to rearrange the atomic and subatomic structure of inorganic matter. Unlike Firestorm, he can change organic matter. He is extremely arrogant and has no normal human emotions. Even when facing 100,000 Kryptonian soldiers, he proudly raised his chin, sneered at the corner of his mouth, and looked at Badi with disdain. At the end, he almost showed half of his head and wore a green power ring. He is a Green Lantern of Earth 3. He is timid, weak, greedy, and has no opinion. Almost all the weaknesses of a human being who is extremely cowardly are manifested in him and have been controlled by the ring on his hand, the power ring. In his ring, the consciousness of the first Lantern of Earth 3, Huo Rong, resides. The first Lantern, Huo Rong, was the little blue man of the Guardian of the Universe, the founder of the planet OA, and the first warrior of the Green Lantern Corps. He was feared for being too powerful and was imprisoned by the Guardian of the Universe for tens of billions of years. The Green Lantern of Earth 3 controlled by the Lantern Ring is simply a waste. When he saw the dense formation of 100,000 Kryptonian warriors in the sky, his legs almost softened, his eyes were extremely terrified, and he lay on the back of the Sea King, almost trembling. Of course, there is also a famous Flash of Earth 3, Johnny Quick, who is arrogant and thinks that nothing in the world can catch up with him. He is extremely arrogant. Because he mocked Badi in person and couldn't even catch his figure, he arrogantly ordered Badi to kneel down as a ruler and was slapped to death by Badi. The 100,000 kilometer crack on the left side of Highway 6 is his invisible graveyard. The sun is scorching and the atmosphere is bleak. On Highway 6, silence was brewing, like the murderous intent before the storm. Badi leaned against the Diamond Throne. The sunlight shone, reflecting the colorful colors of the Diamond Throne. The magnetic field was distorted, and the space seemed to be rippled and broken. The colorful and magnificent light hid Badi's tall body inside. From the shadow of the magnificent light, there was only a dark, tall, and majestic body, revealing a terrifying, demon-like gaze. I heard, "You come, you conquer." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.